What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another Retro Yu-Gi-Oh video and back with another format guide, aka just going through the new cards and ban list for whatever new format I am covering. So the new format that we're going to be covering after Revolution/X-Saber format is Starstrike Format, which is a format based around the El Paso Regional Qualifier in January 2011. Why such a weird event? I mean, normally these are based around like SJCs or YCSs. So why are we going to this regional qualifier? Well, that's a mystery that I'll explain a bit later on in the video. But if you want a hint, you can look at the card we've got on the left there, the Gravekeeper's Recruiter, which is a new card in the card pool for this format, and which makes certain decks pretty good. But before we get into the new card, we are going to dive into the Forbidden and Limited list. Now, this Forbidden Limited list is the same as the one for Revolution/X-Saber format. So if you're familiar with that, you don't really need to watch this part, but I'll go through it anyways for the people at home who are not necessarily familiar with it, so we can see what cards you can't play with, what cards you can only play with at 1, and what cards you can even play only at 2. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the ban section. These are just going to be a who's who of very powerful cards in the game, cards that are probably not healthy to have in the format. BLS and CED being prime examples, just very, very strong Chaos monsters. Chaos Sork is not unlimited in this format, so if Chaos Sork itself is good enough to wind up on the list, these are definitely good enough to be banned. We've got Cyberjar as well, very powerful flip monster along with Fiberjar. They can draw out games, make things pretty swingy and just be generally unfun. Cyberstein can bring out some insanely powerful fusion monsters and lead to some really hard to stop OTKs. Demok is just a very powerful summon, can bring back a spell card, and given the power level of spells in this game, being able to recycle that is very, very good. We've got Hero Dix Commander here, just being able to draw 2 cards whenever it comes out is very, very strong. Magical Scientist can bring out most of the extra deck if you want it to, and this thing is, most of the fusion extra deck at least, but that's generally good enough to win you games. It's mainly here because of an FTK that you can do with it, but it is very strong regardless. Magician of Faith is kind of like an outlier. I don't think this card is as powerful as the rest on this list here. But still, recycling a spell, just like I mentioned with Demon, can be very, very good. Mikura for certain FDKs, if you can activate trap from hand, like Exchange from Spirit, then that can lead to a pretty unfun FDK. Rescue Cat, just being able to get out incredibly powerful monsters. Mainly off of what you get off of. So, like, you get out, like, Air Bellum to do a Synchro play or something like that. Especially with Summoner Monk legal, you can Summoner Monk into Cat and do a crazy play. Even if Dark Strike Fighter is also banned, which is the really problematic thing that you'd end on. Rescue Cat itself is still strong enough to wind up on this list. Scissor Serpent, just a recurring resource loop every turn, and that's generally good enough to wind up on the list. Toad can cause a Frog FTK, so very strong. Infected Virus can blow up the whole board. Multiple times a turn, actually, so very, very good in that way. Sugiyomi can lead to some sort of flip loops. This card also, just like Moth, can probably come off. It's a bit slow for this format, but it's here because it was here historically, I guess. Victory Dragon is here because of weird rulings headaches. It's not really that good, but, if the opponent scoops when it attacks, it can lead to some problems. So this thing is on the list for that reason. Which Black Forest, very powerful tutor, can get out a lot of strong stuff, so you don't want to allow this to be legal. Yatagarasu can cause draw locks. Would you be able to draw out consistently in this format? I would say probably not. But, it's here to send a message, I guess, to people who would want to try that. We got BrainCon here, just being able to take control of your opponent's monster. Very, very strong. Butterfly Dagger Elma here for certain loops with Library and Gearfried. We've got Card of Safe Return because this thing can draw a ton in a format like this where Graveyard Recursion is not too uncommon. Change of Heart, again, just like BrainCon, taking control of your opponent's monster, very strong. Comfy, Delinquent Duo, and also the Forceful Sentry all here because hand rips are very good, in fact, and very unhealthy. So they are all banned. Dimension Fusion for being able to do insane combos. You don't need that in a format like this, so this thing is gone. Graceful Charity here, just being able to draw deep into the deck. Discard 2. Very, very good at setup in a format like this. Harpy Feather Duster, just being able to blow up your opponent's entire back row for free. Very strong. Heavy Storm also banned here. Just being able to blow up your opponent's entire back row. Very, very strong. Last Will, because this thing is busted. I mean, if you could imagine this in a synchro format, you do a synchro summon, you bring on another thing on top of that, you can extend further. I mean, this thing is just too good. Metamorphosis is here because, again, just like Scientist or Stein, it can bring out very powerful things from the extra deck that you want to have a bit more restrictions on. Of course, Thousand Eyes Restrict is also banned as well. This thing could probably come back. There's no real way to enable it in this format, and even if it was, I don't really think it's that good. But, you know, it's here for historical reasons, kind of like Tsukiyomi and Moth. We got Mirage Nightmare, just being able to draw deep into the deck, pitch cards, it's very strong. Painful Choice, being able to set up to your graveyard and get a powerful card to hand, very good. Pot of Greed, free +1, so, you know, might as well ban it. Pre-mat here, just getting rid of another form of graveyard recursion. Of course, Monster Reborn and Call the Haunted are both legal in this format, so I don't really know why pre-mat was the one that got the hit. But I guess because you can loop it with Tornade, that makes it slightly better in the eyes of Konami at the time, but it is banned here. Raigeki, because it's a free board wipe. Snatch Steal, because again, taking control of your opponent's monster, very good. Temple of the Kings is now legal, and now not legal because it's on the ban list. So, you know, this is just like Mikura. You can set up some really powerful plays just by being able to activate some traps from hand the turn you activate it. So this thing is gone. Force Sundry, I mentioned already. Crush card, this thing is super toxic. You know, ripping apart your opponent's deck and wiping out all their monsters. Very good. Exchange of Spirit can lead to some loopy FDKs, which you don't necessarily want in the format. IO, just being able to shut down all spells for minimal cost, very good. And also it's a one-side floodgate, so yeah, this thing is nasty. Last turn, this thing is a Ruling's Nightmare, and also it's not really a fun way to lose the game, so this thing is gone. Ring of Destruction, just a bit too strong, being able to blow up a monster and also deal lethal damage on top of that, just too good. And Time Seal here because draw locks are not fun. There isn't really much you can lock with this, like, you know, Mask of Darkness exists, but you don't have the Tsukiyomi to like reset it every turn. So is this thing actually a threat? I would say probably not. You could probably hit it here, but it is here to sort of send a message, just like Yada. And, you know, it's here because in the past, this thing had been strong. So that does it for the forbidden list. You don't really need to worry about these cards other than like, oh, you know, can I set a bunch of back row because I don't have to fear heavy, things like that. So it's good to, you know, have a vague familiarity with what the list, so you know what you don't really need to worry about. But I would say that more important is the limited list, so that way you know which one of cards you need to worry about instead. And here is the limited list. I'm going to go through these a bit quick. But these are more important, I think, to know than the forbidden list, just so you know when your opponent's used up one of these things, they don't have more of it in their deck, and if they haven't used it up yet, you need to worry about potentially playing into it. So, just going in alphabetical order, Blackwing Gale the Whirlwind, very good special summon, have your opponent's monsters attack, very strong in Blackwings, but very good in a variety of decks as well, so this thing is limited. Card Trooper, you know, I think it's mainly limited, so that way you can't machine duplication it, but it is strong on top of that. You know, a draw, mills, a beater as well on your turn. Very good card overall. Dark Arm Dragon, I mean, this thing is a boss monster for any deck that can play it. Very easy summoning condition. Being able to blow up the board, and also just having a huge attack stat makes this thing very good. Stratos here, if you have more than one Stratos, things can get a bit crazy, as we saw in Airblade format. But this means that you can't just Stratos search for Stratos and just keep doing that loop. So yeah, having this at 1 is pretty good. And it's very accessible too. Like, you can reinforce the army it, you can e-call it. Like, there are many ways to get this one card to hand. So, you know, it's fine at 1. I don't think it's really a problem. Gladiator Beast Bestiari. This thing can make Geyserus, and that is the most powerful card in Gladiator Beast decks, so this thing is limited to, you know, cut off access to that card as much. But again, Gladiator Beast, just like Heroes, has many ways to access this, so it being at 1 doesn't hurt the deck a ton, but it is good, so that way if your opponent does manage to remove it somehow, like with a bottomless trap hole, then you can't make another Geyserus unless you have a way to get it back. So it is a limit that I think does make sense and make the deck a bit more skillful. Gores is here because, you know, this thing is very strong. Your opponent attacks in, and you can drop Gores and turn the game around. This is a thing that you need to be worried about if you're facing an empty board and are like, can I attack here? You need to worry about the Gores, and I think that's a good thing to have in the format. I think it's healthy. Lumina is here because Lightsworn is very strong, and giving it more ways to recur from graveyard is a bit scary. So having it at 1 is pretty good, and just like the other decks, I mean, they've got Charge of the Light Brigade. They've got ways to get this out. So it doesn't, like, it's not a death knell for the deck. It is just, a good hit that makes it a bit healthier. Marshmallow on here because it is a stall card, is a burn card, and generally those decks are not the healthiest to have in a format. Mizuki is here because if you have more than this, zombies can be a bit formidable as a combo deck. So yeah, having one I think is good. And again, there are ways to access this. Foolish Burial can send it to grave. There are ways to recycle it with Burial. I mean, there are ways to sort of get multiple uses out of one copy if you want to. Mind Master here for Mind Master OTKs. Psychics can do some kind of nasty stuff with this thing. And so having it at 1 makes it a bit harder to access. Morphing Jar, just like Cyber Jar and Fiber Jar on the previous page, this thing is very annoying to play into, and having more than one of this can help out burn decks a little bit too much, I'd say. So having this at 1 is pretty good. Necrogarda, because if this thing was at more and you're playing a deck that can mill a ton, then you'd never be able to get to attack in. So having it at 1 is fair. Although, as we'll discuss later, this thing is not as good in this format as it has been in the past. Necroface is here because if you have this at more than 1, it can lead to a degenerate mill strategy. So, good thing to have that limited. Newspatient Granmole, this monster's just annoying. It can out-synchro monsters very easily. You can out a lot of things very easily. And it can just be a brutal tempo card if your opponent's playing this and, they're just bouncing your 1 normal summon a turn, then that can be really annoying for you. Night Assailant, because if this thing is at more than 1, it can make an infinite loop with itself, where you pitch it, or another Night Assailant, and just add back the other one, and you just keep doing that forever. Plague Fair Zombie, very, very good card. You can use it 1 for a single summon, then bring it back, or you can mill it, then bring it back. Very good extender, and if this thing was at more than 1, mill decks would be a bit too strong. Rescue Cat should not be here. That is a mistake on my part. That is banned in this format. My mistake. I might have made that mistake as well in the X-Saver/Revolution format guide. So, yeah, it is what it is. Saying again here, having a recruiter for things with less attack than Witch apparently was okay. So you can search out a lot of good stuff with this. Reaper is a very strong card. It can stall just like Marshmallow. It can rip cards out of hand if you can go in the aggressive with it. So very, very good overall. Summoner Monk, because being able to special summon anything out from deck is pretty strong. Yes, they got rid of Cat, but there are some other combos this thing can do. So it is good to have this thing limited to 1. Triguedia, just like Gores, it is a 1 of hand trap that you need to play around. And just like Gores, I think it is pretty healthy to have to worry about potential things in hand rather than just on field. Moving on to the spells, we've got Advanced Ritual Art, which can be used to summon out pretty much any ritual monster and also set up your graveyard. So this thing being at 1 can hamper those decks a bit, like Herald decks, for instance, or Demise decks if you're still playing Demise. Allure of Darkness, just a very good draw card. Dark doesn't really need more powerful things to do, so this thing is limited for good reason. Black Whirlwind, because if Black Wings have more than 1 of this, then it makes them a bit too consistent. So I think that's a good hit. Burial, because there are a lot of decks that would want to use this in more than 1 copy. It's already incredibly strong as is, resetting your graveyard and allowing you to reuse things like Plague, like Necro, like Value. So having this thing at 1 is very good. Card Destruction, again, this is for mill decks, so you don't want to have too many of these around, or else someone could potentially cook up a combo that just mills out their opponent turn 1 or something. Chart of the Light Brigade, this is a consistency card for Lightsworn, but again, you don't want to have too many consistency cards for Lightsworn, especially the ones that set up the graveyard extremely well. So having this at 1 is a pretty good hit in my opinion. Cold Wave, degenerate combo decks could do degenerate combo things with this while shutting off their opponent's interaction. So it is good to have this thing at 1. Dark Hole, to blow up the board. This is more of a comeback tool. You can't really use it when you've got your own big board set up. I mean, there are some cases where you would, but most of the time you're generally using this to get back into the game and prevents people from making their boards too wide. So I actually do like this card being legal. I think it is somewhat healthy. And so yeah, I like it. Destiny Draw, because, if you're able to draw through more of your deck, that is very good. Even if, Disc Commander is banned, there are other things you can do with this. E-Tele, because it's a great way to access Psychics very easily. And it might make decks that play those sorts of things a little bit too strong. I mean, my Master's already at 1, but if you can have more access to any Psychic that you want, basically, that might be a little bit too good. Foolish Burial, being able to set up your graveyard very strong. So, you should probably only have 1 of this. Future Fusion, you can really set up your graveyard in a variety of decks. Just send a bunch of stuff. It's basically better Foolish Burial that also summons a monster afterwards. So this thing should be limited in my opinion. You could argue for it being banned, but I think it does enable certain strategies in a fun way, and your opponent can stop it with things like MST or any sort of spell and trap removal like that. So I don't hate this thing being legal, but it is very broken. Tornade, bouncing back your opponent's stuff, just like Cold Wave, it can enable some pretty degenerate stuff. And Inferni Launcher, because Infernis don't need more help. If you have more than one launcher, you can potentially set up some really nasty things. So yeah, having one is fine enough. It bolsters Infernis enough to make them somewhat competitive potentially, but also not to make them like too overbearing. Level Area B is a floodgate. You want to allow certain decks to play because it's not like super broken on its own, but at the same time, it is a bit unfun to face. So you only really want to have one of this. Limited removal, because certain decks could OTK very easily if this thing has, at more than one copy. Just having more access to it is kind of brutal. Megamorph, similar thing, although Megamorph's a bit less good than limited removal because it's not a quick play spell. This thing can definitely lead to certain OTK strategies being a bit too good. Minecon, being able to take control of your opponent's monster, very, very strong. But unlike BrainCon, unlike Change of Heart, unlike Snatch Steal, you're a lot more limited in what you can do with it. So yes, this thing is still busted, but no, it is not as busted as the cards that are banned. Monster Gate and Reasoning are both here because Reason Gate could be very good and just spam out a bunch of monsters. So, it's good to restrict the power of that deck. Reborn here, along with Call of the Haunted, I guess they wanted more Graveyard Recursion. I think Reborn's a little bit too strong, but you could argue that it adds another dimension to play. For instance, DD Crow is a popular side deck card in the format, if not main deck card. I would say probably not main deck in this format, but there's certain decks that DD Crow can hit, and if you're able to Reborn from your opponent's graveyard, they can't DD Crow it, so, maybe that's the argument for having this thing out here. But I think the thing's just a little bit too good, in my opinion. 1-for-1, being able to start certain decks, very, very strong card. Not as strong as it once was, not Substance is banned, but still very good in a variety of decks. Overload Fusion, you can couple this thing with Future Fusion to make a big Chimera Takeover Dragon and kill your opponent. So that's why this thing is limited, to limit the power of that combo. Rhoda, because, warrior decks are pretty good, and just having like a hero engine is already pretty strong, so you don't necessarily need more access to that. I think having one is fine enough, especially when decks with the hero engine can also play E-Call on top of that. Scapegoat, because, honestly, it's just a historical hit. They were a bit worried about, goat control stuff. This is still pretty good at giving you monsters on board, right? Like, if you want just fodder on board to then do a synchro play the next turn, this thing is very strong. But I think overall, it's not the best thing here. It can also stop aggressive pushes as well. Sword of Living Light, again, another stall card, another floodgate. They don't want to have too many of those. Call of the Haunted is a bit worse, Monster Reborn, although you could argue it's better because you can activate it at quick effect speed. But it does die to spell trap removal, so it is a bit more vulnerable than Reborn. Ceasefire is a burn card. You don't want to make burn too powerful, so it's limited. Gravity Bind, another floodgate. Magical Explosion, because if you have more than one of this, it can lead to FTKs. Honestly, with one of it, you can also potentially set up an FTK, but it's a lot harder to do than it is with more than one. Mind Crush, because this thing is pretty toxic, especially with Trap Dust Shoot. Yeah, this thing can be a bit rough, but it is a good side deck card against a variety of decks. Mirror Force and Torrential Tribute are both very fair traps that you have to play around. So again, kind of like Dark Hole, you can't build your board too wide or commit too much into these. So I do think they're very healthy to have in the format. But if you have more than one, they might get a bit out of hand. Return from the Different Dimension is a very good payoff for certain decks. But because it is a trap, it's less good than Dimension Fusion. And so, yeah, it's, I guess, acceptable to play for that reason. Royal Oppression is a very powerful floodgate. So again, limited because floodgate. Now, that being said, there's arguably a more powerful floodgate that comes out in this card pool, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Judgment, just very, very strong counter trap, so it makes sense to that one. Transmutation Prophecy is, I guess, here because there were certain stall decks that were trying to play more than one of this. I don't really think those are that good, but I guess that it's here because of that. I talked about TD. Dust Shoot is just probably the most toxic card in the game. I hate this card. This thing should be banned, but it was not for a very long time in Yuka's history, and we got to live with that. So it is around very strong if you're able to pull it off. Wall of Reeling Light, another stall card, so it is limited here. We've got the 5 pieces of Exodia here, mainly for flavor, but you could argue that if there were more than one of this, it could lead to some unhealthy things. And then for the Synchros, we got Bryonek, Dragon the Ice Barrier. Very strong, able to bounce your opponent's stuff very easily and set up for potential lethal lines. Goyo, another very powerful 6. Be able to take your opponent's monsters is very good. And as an important note, this did not have the Earth restriction here. That is a later errata. We play with the original version of the cards. So this thing can just take your opponent's stuff and be made with any materials. So you don't have to have an Earth tuner for it. That's going to do it for the limited section. Last but not least, let's dive into the semi-limited list, and then we can actually dive into the new cards added to the format. I think the semi-limited list is less important to, like, actually have nailed down in your head, like the limited list would be. But there are still some important cards here that you should make note of. Chaos Orc being at 2, certain decks can play Chaos, and there's a decent boss monster for it. It's not like a final boss, but it's definitely a sort of mid-boss that is easy to bring out and can get value very easily. So it makes sense why it's at 2. Dandelion at 2. Plant decks are a lot stronger in this format. The Glow Bulb was out. Oop, bit of a spoiler there. But yeah, this thing is very good in those decks, so having only 2, I think, makes sense. Disingenuous Malicious, this is at 2. Because it's neat to extend into 1, but if you have 3 in the deck, then it's too much extension. So makes sense why this thing's at 2, as it is for much of Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Honest is at 2 because of the very, very powerful hand trap that can lead to OTKs very easily. So, this thing honestly could be limited to 1 in my opinion, but it is important to know if you're going up against a light-based deck that they can have 2 of this, and you do need to play around that sometimes. Judgment Dragon, because Lightthorn is very, very strong, and if you have 3 of this, then you could potentially blow up the board with 1 and then just slam down the other 2 and just kill your opponent from 8,000. So I think they went to 2 just to sort of mitigate against that, but this thing is just still extremely strong and very, very powerful. Lone Fire Blossom, I guess they didn't want to have this card too accessible for plants, and also having 3 could make, Avarice online a little bit too often, I guess. But this thing is very, very good in a plant deck. Snipe Hunter, honestly, this thing is bad. I think Snipe Hunter is a really bad card. I think it is in most formats. Just, adding that element of luck is very awkward because, like, sometimes it'll be the best card in the world, sometimes it'll be the worst card in the world. And generally, you don't want to have that sort of variance in competitive lists. Of course, when it is on, it is on. But yeah, I just don't really like putting these cards in my deck. But if you do like it, know it's at 2. People would not really play more than 1 of this, I assume. But, it is important to know about, I guess. Demise King of Armageddon is here. I don't think Demise decks are that good in this format. There are other decks that can pop the board much more easily. But, it's here if you want to play that sort of thing. Chain Strike is, pretty good for burn. And so now you can know that, like, if you're up against a Chain Burn deck, they only have 2 copies of this card. Gold Sark, it's here. Certain decks want to play Gold Sark, but it's never the 3rd Gold Sark that gets you. So I feel like this is just mainly for deck building. You don't really need to worry about it if you're facing off against one of those decks. Magical Stone Excavation is good in certain combo decks, so this thing was hit, but you'll very rarely see it. Mystical Space Typhoon is very, very good. Spawn Trap Removal, a lot of decks do play it, so knowing that it's at 2 is very important for this format. Bottomless Trap Hole at 2 copies is also pretty important to know. This is a removal option that's played in a lot of decks. So if you were worried about it, keeping track of how many your opponents used can be good. Magic Cylinder, a burn card. I don't really think that, this is important in most matchups. But I guess it's here for if you do face burn. Same with Trio. Trio is just another burn card that in formats like this is actually, like, sometimes beneficial for you because you can use the token for synchro summons. So it's a lot less good than it was in burn formats pre-5Ds, but it's still here, so still important to know about. Skill Drain, another Floodgate at 2. It's not like some other Floodgates where you just can't do anything at all with it, but it is very strong and very annoying to face, so knowing it's at 2 is important. And then Ultimate Offering at 2, there are certain decks that can play this thing to great effect. I would say probably not in this format, but in future formats, they're a bit powerful. So having this thing not at 3, hits those decks a little bit. And then lastly, we got Duloran, Tiger King, the Ice Barrier. You can do certain loops with this thing. Frankly, I don't think those loops are, like, super consistent, especially with the top deck in the format being what it is, which we'll get into shortly. But it is important to know about, I guess, if you want to make a deck like that. And that does it for the list here. I hope that you enjoyed the discussion of it. And, like, if you had heard already and you stuck through that, thank you for listening to it, I guess. But now we're going to get to the good stuff. We're going to get to the new cards added to Starstrike Format and talk about how they sort of affect the meta. Now, this may seem like a weird place to start actually talking about the new cards added to Starstrike Format. Typically, I like to talk about like the new archetypes added or the new just sort of one-off powerful cards that shift the format around. But instead, here I am talking about legacy support for past archetypes. So why is that? Well, the answer is it's a bit tough to discuss a lot of this format without knowing what the best deck in the room is. And the best deck in the room basically is that way because it received one singular support card that just catapulted it to the top of the pile, and that is Gravekeepers. Gravekeepers is a deck that has seen some play in X-Revolution format. It is still pretty good there. Having things like True Pot of Duality grants the deck a lot of consistency. Of course, Stell can be good at recycling things. And there are various decks that, do care about the graveyard. Also, No Heavy Storm allows them to just set a bunch of back row and sort of turtle up behind that. So that can be very good as well. But the deck really starts to pop off in Starstrike Format, where it gets Gravekeeper's Recruiter. Gravekeeper's Recruiter is a level 3 dark spellcaster, 1200 attack, 1500 defense. If this card you control is sent to your graveyard, add one Gravekeeper's monster with 1500 or less defense from your deck to your hand. Now, that can be a variety of things. That could be another Recruiter, so just, sort of replacing itself. That could be a Commandant, which I believe Commandant has 1500. I am actually going to be using the search bar here a lot more in this video because, we're going to get to talking about some decks that, rely more heavily on their already released cards than we have in the past. So I'm going to use this, but yeah, Commandant does 1500 defense. So you can start a Commandant, get Necro Valley if that's what you want. You can get out a Descendant. You can get out Assailant if you really want to go for that. Like, there's so many things that can get out. Basically, the only thing it can't is Spy, but that's generally fine because it's just a consistency booster, right? It slows the game down a little bit, and in Gravekeepers, that's kind of what you want to be doing. Increase your grind game, especially if you get this thing back off of Stell. Then you can bring it out again, get more searches. You can tribute this thing off of Descended and get a pop and a replacement effect. This thing just does it all for the deck. It's extremely good card. And it takes a deck that was already pretty decent and just catapults it to the top of the pile. So this thing is the deck to beat in this format. I'm not necessarily going to say it's tier 0, as there are decks that can beat it, but it is a bit tough to beat a lot of the time. And it is the deck that just at base, is the best thing that you can be doing. So yeah, we'll get into some counterplay for it later. But this card in this deck by extension is part of why I think Starstrike Format is not viewed as fondly in the community as other 5Ds formats are, because it is a very slow, very grindy format. Oftentimes you will face the Gravekeeper mirror, which can be a bit frustrating because basically in that mirror you take out the Necro Values, you take out the tributes, and you're just playing a pure grind game. So it can be a bit awkward in this format. Just in terms of the dynamics it introduces. But there are other things to play in this format if you do want to do that, if you really want to try that. And I think that, like GOAT, once people really start digging into it, maybe there can be some things that can counter the top deck and really shift up the metagame of the format, just like with what happened with Chaos Turbo in GOAT format. But that's not the only powerful card released in this new set of sets. So there was some Hidden Arsenal stuff. There was Starstrike Blast, which is where we get the name Starstrike from. And I would say that another, pretty good legacy support card is Formula Synchron. Now, the funny thing is that this thing is technically part of the Synchron archetype. Synchron is more of a series of cards at this point, but I would say that there's enough of them there to sort of lump it into this category. But Formula Synchron is meant to be sort of in the you say pile, right? That's what the card was intended to be. It is a level 2 synchro tuner, 200 attack, 1500 defense, made with one tuner, one non-tuner monster, and then when synchro summoned, you can draw one card. So very good effect right away. And then once per chain during your opponent's main phase, you can, as a quick effect, immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon using this card you control. So that is a very good set of effects. One, the draw is very nice. Because you just get deeper in your deck to extend your combo further. 2, being able to quick play synchro monsters on your opponent's turn can be very, very strong. If you can make a Black Rose on your opponent's turn, wipe the board, that is extremely good. And being able to interrupt your opponent's plays in general is just very, very nice to do. So this thing is a powerhouse, and funnily enough, it actually sees play in decks that are not really on the full Synchron package, as those decks generally want to do like quick draw stuff, and Formula Synchron doesn't really factor into the quick draw stuff. What it mainly factors into for Yusei's deck is Shooting Star Dragon, which is the cover card of Starstrike Blast. It is a level 10 Synchro, 3300 attack, 2500 defense, made with 1 Tuner Synchro monster and 1 Stardust Dragon. So as you can see, the Formula Synchron and the Stardust are what you're intended to make this with. And then once per turn, you can activate the top 5 cards of your deck, shuffle them back. And also this card maximum number of attacks per battle phase this turn equals the number of tuners excavated. Once per turn, when a card or effect is activated, that will destroy a card or cards on the field. As a quick effect, you negate the effect, and if you do, destroy it. And then once per turn, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target the attacking monster, banish this card, and if you do, negate that attack. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card is banished by its effect this turn, special summon this card. So this thing is a pretty good boss monster, pretty good finisher for certain combo decks that would want to make it. However, Formula Synchron is just generally better in a plant deck, which has access to very easy to make level 1 tokens off Dandy, level 1 tuners off of Glow Up. And once you do make it, you can then further extend your combo into other synchro plays, which the deck has a lot of access to as well. So that is mainly where the deck, or where the card shines. But if you do want to make this like big Yusei combo deck, you can do that. Also, there were some other Synchrons released in the set, as well as other Synchron support. So Fleur Synchron is the main one. Level 2 light machine tuner, despite looking like a plant. I don't know why it's a machine. 4 attack, 2 defense. It says if this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can special summon 1 level 2 or lower monster from your hand. So you could potentially go into a Necrolinker, which is a level 2 synchron support card, 600 attack, 0 defense. You can tribute this card, select 1 synchron tuner monster in your graveyard, special summon that monster. It cannot be used as a synchro material monster during the turn it's special summoned by this effect. So you could potentially summon back Fleur Synchron, just off of this combo. But I think the better thing to do, probably if you have this thing, is to bring back Formula Synchron. So that way you can quick effect synchro during your opponent's next turn. But still an interesting card to have in this set. There are also other things like Synchron Explorer that also interacts with Formula Synchron being a synchron. So that's why I sort of lumped it into this category. Although the main, searcher for Synchron's tuning didn't interact with Formula Synchron because Formula Synchron is just in your extra deck. Tuning, by the way, very good card for decks that want to do quick draw Synchron plays. It says add 1 Synchron tuner from your deck to your hand, then send the top card of the deck to the graveyard. So this could be very good, especially in plant decks that want to mix the Synchron and the plant side of things. If you mill like a Dandy, if you mill a Glow Pulp, that's very strong as well. Not every plant deck wants to go that direction though, but if you do want to go that direction, it is here for you. Also, there is a new synchro monster made with a synchron monster, which is Chevalier de Fleur. Chevalier de Fleur made with Fleur Synchron and 1 or more non-tuner monster, and it's a level 8 synchro. 27 attack, 23 in defense, says once per turn during your turn when your opponent activates a spell or trap card. As a quick effect, you can negate the activation if you do destroy that card. So this thing basically negates your opponent's effect once per turn, which is extremely good. I mean, this thing is very strong if you can bring it out. And so I think it is a good addition to Quick-Draw decks if they're, doing that sort of thing. But I think that Quick-Draw decks are... it's sort of on the decline. But, you can make that deck work if you want to. It's just a bit worse than the more standard plant decks that you might see. Of course, if we're talking about the Synchrons, we should also talk about the Resonators, the other set of tuners played by Jack Atlas in the anime. They got a new one as well, Creation Resonator, the level 3 Wind Fiend tuner, 800 attack, 600 defense, with the effect that if you control level 8 or higher Synchro monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And you might be wondering, why would I do that? Well, just like Yusei got Shooting Star Dragon to sort of upgrade from the regular Stardust Dragon, Jack got Red Nova Dragon to upgrade from Red Dragon Archfiend, the level 12 dragon made with 2 tuners and 1 Red Dragon Archfiend, 3,500 attack, 3,000 defense, and it gains 500 attack for each tuner in your graveyard. So at base, that will likely be 4,500 because you'll need 2 tuners to make it. But it might even more because you may have also, use tuners to make the Red Dragon Archfiend that are not then on your field. So this thing can be very, very high attack. And it can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target the attacking monster, banish this card, and if you do negate that attack, once per turn in the end phase, if this card is banished by its effect this turn, special summon this banished card. So the effect of this is pretty bad, I would say. I mean, being basically indestructible is pretty good, and having a super high attack stat in addition to that can be very nice. But there are plenty of non-destruction removal in these formats. I mean, Dim Priz is a key example that gets played in a lot of different decks. And so I don't really think this thing is the best, especially because its summoning conditions are a lot harder to do, in my opinion, than, Shooting Star Dragons. But if you want to live out your best Jack Atlas life, I guess you can do this if you want. There's also a Red Dragon Archfiend support trap for some reason. Red screen, continuous trap card that says your opponent's monsters cannot declare attacks. During each of your end phase, you must pay 1,000 life points. This is not optional, or this card is destroyed. You can target one level 1 tuner monster in your graveyard, destroy this card, and if you do, special summon that target. Red Dragon Archfiend must be on the field to activate and resolve this effect. So there's sort of, I guess, a lockdown card while you set up for the Red Nova Dragon play. So the idea is that you make a Red Dragon Archfiend, maybe with a level 1 tuner and a 7. Go into that, and then you red screen back the level 1 tuner. You special summon out the Creation Resonator from hand, and then there you go, Bob's your uncle. You've got 12 for the Red Nova Dragon. But frankly, like, the 1,000 life points at the end of each of your turns is kind of rough. And also, it's a floodgate, right? Floodgates, I think, are not really the best thing in the world to be doing. And if you're just floodgating to do a big attack at the end of that, then, like, that's not ideal, I think. So, yeah, I don't think the strategy is that good, but I mean, if someone wants to prove me wrong and make a dragon deck that does it, then go for it. But it's just kind of underwhelming, especially compared to some of the other stuff on the format. Like, I think the Shooting Star Dragon is just generally better than Red Nova Dragon, and it's generally easier to make. And yeah, that's my take on it. Of course, since we're talking about 5G's anime stuff, we should also probably talk about Crow and the Blackwing deck. Now, Blackwings did not receive much good support in this set, I will be honest. Like, the support is pretty bad on a whole. The best one's probably Blackback. There's a normal trap that says during your turn, target one Blackwing monster with 2,000 less attack in your graveyard, special summon that target. You cannot normal summon or set during the turn you activate this card. So, I guess the idea with this is you bring back like a Sirocco, and then you're supposed to summon out like Boras, Gales, etc., and then you can buff them up or do synchro plays or what have you. It's just a bit awkward because, Blackwings are a deck that do want a normal summon as well. I mean, they've got Blizzard, they've got Black Whirlwind, they've got a bunch of things that they actually would want a normal summon. And in order to actually use this card to its biggest effect, I'd say, you'd probably want to actually have Blackwings in hand already to special summon out. But if you have them in hand already, you could just normal summon them and do plays like that. Like, it's a very awkward card, especially in a format where Reborn and Call of the Haunted are both legal. So I don't really think it's that good. But I guess if you want to play it, you can. I guess you can special summon during your opponent's turn and dodge the restriction that way. But it's still a bit of an awkward card, especially when Call of the Haunted and Reborn are in the format. Next up, we got Blackwing Booby Trap, a normal trap that says, when this set card is destroyed by your opponent's card effect while you control a face-up Blackwing monster, inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent and draw one card. I guess the idea of this is like, instead of like a Legacy of Yggdrasil or Jar of Greed, you can play this instead, bait the opponent's spell trap removal, they pop it, and then you draw a card and deal 1,000 damage to them. But generally, just Jar of Greed and Legacy of Yggdrasil are going to be a lot less specific. And also with Heavy Storm gone, that's one form of spell trap removal that most decks would have played, not in the picture. So it just makes this pretty bad overall, in my opinion. But it does tie in to a general theme of burn strategies for some reason that Blackwing is trying to do. They got Etesian of 2 swords, level 3 dark, winged beast, 400 attack, 600 defense. So if a Blackwing monster you control battles an opponent's monster and your opponent still controls that monster at the end of the damage step, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard and inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. So it's another burn. I guess 1,000 damage is a hefty sort of amount. But if that monster is still alive, then it means they've got a big monster on their field, so they can just hit back pretty hard. So I think generally you just want to clear that monster, probably deal damage on top of it. So yeah, I don't really think this thing's that good. I guess you can pair it with like Armor Master or the new Blackwing Abrolos, the Mega Quake. This is a level 7 Wing Beast, 2,600 attack, 1,800 defense, cannot be special summoned. This card cannot destroy monsters by battle. So I guess you can also pair Etesian with this. And if this card battles a monster after damage calculation, return that monster to the hand. So I guess you can't really do it because at the end of after damage calculation occurs before the end of the damage step. So actually this is a non-bow, I think. Unless I'm getting my damage step calculation timings wrong. Let me know down in the comments below if I am doing that. But this is just pretty bad. So yeah, it's not good. Once per turn during your main phase 1, you can have this card lose exactly 1,000 attack, and if you do, return all cards in your opponent's spell and trap zone to the hand. So it's like Giant Tornado on legs, I guess. So if you want to, I guess, set up for a bigger play, you can like treat this out, bounce things back, special summon out more Blackwings, and try and make some plays happen. But it just seems kind of like pie in the sky, not really going to happen. So yeah, this thing is pretty bad in my opinion. Next up, we got Blackwing Aurora in the Northern Lights, which is actually a very interesting card. It is a level 10 Lightwing Beast, question mark attack or defense. It can't be normal to summon your set. It must be special summoned from your hand by banishing 2 face-up monsters you control, 1 Blackwing tuner and 1 non-tuner, and it can't be special summoned by other ways. Once per turn, you can banish 1 Blackwing synchro monster from your extra deck until the end phase. This card's name and original attack becomes that monster's and replace this effect with that monster's original effects. Now, this would be a really cool sort of thing if Blackwings had better synchro monsters. Like, if you look at the synchro monsters they've got like Armed Wing, they've got Armor Master, they've got, I guess, the Ascendant one. We can look this up using the side thing here. Yeah, so they've got Armor Master, Armed Wing, Silver One, the Ascendant. Like, I would say none of these are like super good. Like I would say that like Silver One's probably the best of them, but like I don't know. That's a very low bar. The power of Blackwing synchros is how easy they are to bring out through normal means or through value. And they're not really meant to like, use their effects. I mean, they can, right? Like the effects are decent, but our Master's effect is not really that useful for Aurora because you're just putting a wedge counter on something that then you can't like remove the wedge counters for in the future. Armed Wing is piercing, I guess, so that's a bit of damage there. But yeah, it's just not really that good. Also, if you have a Blackwing tuner or non-tuner, you can just make a synchro monster itself, and that'll probably be better. So yeah, the thing is pretty bad. But kudos to Blackwing for trying out new ways to synchro summon. I mean, Vayu goes from graveyard, and that was a success, so maybe they thought Aurora would have similar success, but frankly, it's just not really good. Of course, if we're talking about the anime, there's some other anime support things that happened here. The Winged Dragon of Ra, that's a big one that came out in this format. It's iconic. It's level 10 Divine Beast, question mark attack, question mark defense, can't be special summoned, requires 3 tributes to normal summon, and can't be normal set. This card normal summon cannot be negated. When normal summoned, other cards and effects cannot be activated. When this card normal summoned, you can pay life points so that you only have 100 left. This card gains attack and defense equal to the amount of life points paid. You can pay 1,000 life points, then target 1 monster on the field, destroy that target. So, very anime flavorful sort of thing, but is it that good? No, not really. Paying that amount of life points for a monster that doesn't have protection is not really the best. And also, if you just try and use the pop effect without actually doing the life point thing, then you just have a 0 attack point monster that's just removal, right? So this thing's pretty bad, but of course it's iconic, so I can't hate on it too much. Speaking of the Yu-Gi-Oh anime, the original one, we've also got a new Gaia card, Gaia Drake, the Universal Force. This is a level 10 Beast Warrior, 3500 attack, 200 defense, made with Gaia Knight, the Force of Earth, and 1 non-effect synchro monster. This card cannot be targeted by or destroyed by the effects of effect monsters, so that's pretty cool. I think you can bring it out off of like Summoner of Illusions. So like, it dodges the destruction on this thing at the end of the turn, and it's a big 3,500 attack point monster that can't be destroyed by the effects of effect monsters. So that's pretty cool. But that's a bit of a gimmick. It might be a little bit too slow. And of course, it can be destroyed by other things, like spells and traps, which are prevalent in this format. So I don't really think this thing is that good. But if you want to do a sort of gimmicky deck, you can go for it. For some reason, like this set also released another fusion. I guess because it follows up with the past sets, releasing Draco East, which is made with, Synchro Monster and another type of monster. And here we got Supreme Arcanite Magician, made with a Spellcaster type Synchro Monster and another Spellcaster monster. This is a level 10 light Spellcaster, 1400 attack, that is, 2800 defense. And it says this monster can only be special summoned by Fusion Summon from the extra deck. When this card is fusion summoned, place 2 spell counters on it. This card gains 1,000 attack for each spell counter on it. And then once per turn, you can remove 1 spell counter from your side of the field to activate one of the following effects. Either select 1 card in the field, destroy it, or draw 1 card. So, not terrible. I would say the spell counter decks are not that good. I would say that like Arcanite is probably enough of a payout if you're going for that sort of thing. This thing is just not really the best. But if you do manage to make it, it's kind of cool, and you get to say that you made it, even if you're probably not winning the game off of it. But getting back to the DM/GX era, we've also got another Monarch here. Delg, the Dark Monarch, level 6 Dark, Spellcaster, 24 in attack, 1000 defense. When this card is normal or spell summoned, you can target up to 2 cards in your opponent's graveyard, banish that target or targets, and then send the same number of cards from the top of their deck to the graveyard. This card cannot attack the turn it is normal or spell summoned. This thing's really bad. It has the Kuraz restriction, not being able to attack, but with an effect that's much worse than Kuraz. It can actually set up your opponent's graveyard, because if you're up against a deck where you want to banish targets from their graveyard, they're probably playing a deck that wants to mill, right? So, like, it is not a good card by any means. Just play the other Dark Monarch instead. Kai is much, much better. We've also got Skull Servant support and Whitemare, level 1 Dark Zombie, 300 attack, 200 defense. So this card's name becomes Skull Servant while in the graveyard. You can discard this card, then activate one of the following effects. 1, target one of your banished Skull Servant or Whitemare and return to the graveyard. Or 2, target one of your banished the Lady in White or King of the Skull Servants and special summon it. So this thing is a pretty good way to sort of get more of your King of the Skull Servants into rotation, buff up their attack a little bit more, because King of the Skull Servants can return from graveyard by banishing, a Skull Servant or Lady in White or King of the Skull Servants. So, this just allows you to get more in grave, recycle one if you want to, and also it does, add to the Skull Servant count in the grave. So, this thing is pretty cool. I like it for the deck. I think that with, Grave Heroes being the best, I think that Skull Servant decks are not really that good. You could argue that it maybe makes them better since the Skull Servants can't be, removed from play. So, the attack stat will remain high. But the issue with that is that they won't have the recursion ability, as they won't be able to banish things from grave to bring themselves back. So, I think that deck kind of suffers in this format, but I do like Whitemare for supporting a very fun, gimmicky deck that people do enjoy to play. Next up, we get Dark Lords. Dark Lords aren't really an archetype at this point. It's just more a series of monsters with the Dark Lord name. But they do eventually become an archetype later, so I figured I'd talk about them here. Dark Lord Desire is a level 10 Dark Fairy, 3000 attack, 2000 defense. It says cannot be special summoned. You can tribute to summon this card by triggering one fairy monster, and then once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls. This card loses exactly 1000 attack, and if it does, send that target to the graveyard. So this is basically worse Dark Arm Dragon. Yeah, I mean, not much more to say about it. I guess being a 1 tribute is kind of nice, but any monster that can't be special summoned in a format like this is kind of a liability, I would say. And its attack stat is just really bad if you ever do use the effect. So yeah, this thing is not very good in my opinion. Next up, we got Dark World. Of course, this isn't really factor into the Dark World archetype at all. It just shares a name with it. So it's more like lore connected, I guess. But it is interesting. So Dark World Shackles, an equip spell, says the equipped monster cannot attack. Also, attack and defense becomes 100. During each of your standby phases, inflict 500 damage to the controller of the equipped monster. So it's kind of a removal spell. If you equip it to your opponent's monster, goes down to 100 attack, 100 defense, and you try and attack over it, and they, sort of remove what you're trying to attack over it with, then when it comes to their turn, it will burn them, so punish them for doing that. So it's kind of neat. I don't hate it. Is it, good enough to play over other removal cards? No, I would say definitely not. But it is kind of funny to play around with. Moving on, I don't really have a good segue here because frankly, the archetypes supported here are like not really that good. The main reason I'm doing this for is just the Grave Heroes Recruiter. That is the best thing here, head and shoulders, except for maybe Formula Synchron, which isn't even really an archetype card. Unfortunately, all the latest support for the other archetypes that were released here were pretty bad. Scrap Mind Reader and the other scrap cards are a prime example of that. This is a level 1 machine tuner, 0 attack, 0 defense. Says 1 per turn. While this card is in your graveyard during your main phase 2, you can select one face-up scrap monster you control except Scrap Mind Reader. Destroy that monster and special summon this card from the graveyard. If you do remove this card from play when it's removed from the field, if this card is used as synchro material, all other synchro material monsters must be scrap monsters. So if we pull up some scrap stuff, I mean, they do want to be destroyed a lot of the time. So like, Scrap Beast lets you add a scrap card to hand if it's destroyed. Or Scrap Goblin, you can add a target to your hand, I guess. I guess they do the same thing upon being destroyed. But like, they do want to be destroyed. Also, Scrap Dragon. Actually, Scrap Dragon doesn't actually work with it because it's be destroyed by an opponent's card. I was thinking you could like pop Scrap Dragon, bring something else back, and make a different synchro play, but no, you can't do that. So it's just like kind of awkward. Like, yes, you are getting some value, but like it's not really the best, I would say. I think they want you to do like other synchro plays to like go into Scrap Twin Dragon, which is the new Scrap Synchro, and it's level 9 as opposed to level 8. So I guess you can make this with like the Scrap Mind Reader and the Scrap Dragon, and then bring back Scrap Mind Reader later if you want. But for instance, Scrap Twin Dragon is really bad. Level 9 Dragon Synchro, made with one Scrap Tuner and one or more non-tuner monsters, so it's not generically Scrap Dragon. 3,000 attacks, 100 defense. It says once per turn, you can target one card you control and 2 cards your opponent controls. Destroy the one you control, and if you do, return the one to your opponent controls to the hand. If this card is in your possession is destroyed by your opponent's card and set to your graveyard, target one non-synchro Scrap monster in your graveyard, special summon it. So it is the same last condition as regular Scrap Dragon. The idea is it would be better because it bounces things back. Also, you know, it returns to hand, so dodges things like Stardust Dragon, for instance, right? So that seems better, right? The issue with this is that oftentimes you're using Scrap Dragon to pop back row or pop monsters that are not synchro monsters, just pesky things that you don't necessarily know the identity of that you want to clear away before making your big push. You don't super care about Stardust Dragon if you have Scrap Dragon on the field because, like, you could always attack over the Stardust Dragon. I guess you could run into back row. But also, if you're making a generic 8, you don't necessarily have to make it Scrap Dragon. You make a Thought Ruler Archfiend if you're worried about back row that targets. It's just not really an upgrade. It's actually like a strict downgrade, except in terms of the raw attack stat. I guess like you could argue that like bouncing 2 allows you for more like OTK potential or something. But I feel like the general value of Scrap Dragon, like turn after turn, is just much better. So yeah, I think even in Scrap Dragon is just better than Scrap Twin Dragon. But yeah, I guess it's here if you want to play it. We got some other scraps. Scrap Searcher to level 1. Winged Beast, 100 attack, 300 defense. So when a scrap monster you control except for Scrap Searcher is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. When this card is special summoned, destroy all face-up monsters you control except scrap monsters. So the idea is like you pair it with like a Scrap Mind Reader, or you pair it with things like that, and you just get more fodder for synchro plays. Like it's kind of mad though. I mean, I don't know. It's not a tuner itself. It's just like, I guess if it's something like a Scrap monster attacked over, there's a blocker, but like it's just real bad. I mean, Scraps Pure are already kind of rough. This might go in a Scrap Pure deck, like if you're, popping things like, like, I don't even know. I don't really know what you would do with this. I mean, maybe send it to graveyard with Scrap Storm. And like, I guess so if you send it to graveyard with Scrap Storm and then pop the thing with Scrap Storm, then you bring it back immediately. So like, I guess you can do stuff with it. It's just not that good. I don't know. It seems pretty bad. Scrap Soldier level 5, Earth Warrior Tuner. So this is a Scrap Tuner, so that's kind of cool. But it can't be used as Synchro Material Monster except for the Synchro Summon of a Scrap Monster. If this face-up defense position card is selected as an attack target, destroy this card at the end of the battle phase. Note that's at the end of the battle phase, so this thing has to survive being attacked into with 700 defense. Not the most likely thing in the world. There are ways to do it, but like that's a pretty tough condition. If this card is destroyed by the effect of scrap card, set to the graveyard, you can select one scrap monster in the graveyard except for Scrap Soldier added to your hand. So it's got the same condition as something like the Beast or the Goblin. I mean, I don't know. This thing doesn't have a special summon like a Scrap Golem would. Yeah, I mean, I guess you can't special summon this out, but it's like that effect is so much more powerful than just Scrap Soldier, which, yeah, I don't know. It just seems super bad. I guess you can add it off of Scrapyard, so that's something, but yeah, it's just pretty bad overall. Scrap Loop is a continuous spell to select one scrap monster in graveyard, special summon that monster from the graveyard. Its effects are negated when this card removed from field, destroy that monster. When that monster removed from field, destroy this card. So, and you can't conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card. So, I mean, this is another way to like trigger your scraps, I guess. You bring something back off Scrap Loop, you pop the Scrap Loop, that pops your scrap, and that does count as being destroyed by a card effect, counts as being destroyed by a scrap card. So I guess if you wanted to, you could do something like, send Scrap Soldier to grave, and then Scrap Loop it back, and then pop scrap lube or like synchro. Like I don't even know. It's just like rough. They're just better cards that do this, right? Like Reborn is probably better most of the time. Call the Haunted is just a strict upgrade to this. I guess that those are limited where this is not, but its power level just does not fit. And especially in Gravekeeper format, this thing is super bad. I think Scraps are just in a bad space overall in this format. But this support definitely did not help. Scrap Crash is the last of it. Normal trap says activate only when a scrap monster you control is destroyed inside the graveyard. Destroy all face-up spell trap cards on the field. So they can stop something like Necro Valley. Like it can also pop your own scrap lube. So there is that. But I don't know. This just seems so underwhelming. It's conditional, only pops face-up spell traps. Like you're better off playing like MSC or Dust Tornado than this thing. So yeah, it's just pretty bad overall. But I guess if you're up against the Watt matchup, it can be pretty good because they did get some support that was just face-up spell traps. So there you go. Watt Castle is the first. It's a field spell that says any monster that attacks a Watt monster loses 1,000 attack after damage calc. And that is permanent. So, if your Watt monster are attacking in and maybe they're not destroyed by battle, if something like Watt Kiwi's on the field, which is a Watt monster that prevents Watt monster you control from being destroyed by battle while they're attacking, you can lower the attack of your opponent's monsters to maybe get over them. But like that's not really what the deck wants to be doing. The deck wants to be attacking directly. Like that's what procs most of its stuff. So also it's only monsters that attack the Watt monster. They're not monsters that battle with them. So actually the Watt Kiwi combo doesn't even work. So yeah, it's just pretty rough overall. Watt Adjustments, the other one is a quick spell. This is equipped only to a level 3 or lower Thunder type monster. So i.e. one of your Watts. Gain data or attack, but also it's effect or negated. Each time inflicts battle damage to your opponent, draw one card. So, again, in a deck that wants to be attacking directly with the stuff, doing this cancels out the direct attacking because, that effect to attack directly is negated. It just makes your monster kind of a beat stick. The drawing one is nice, but given the Watt monsters are pretty weak on their own, the gain or attack probably won't buff them up to the point where they're actually able to attack over anything. So, yeah, this thing is just pretty bad, I would say. Moving on to the monsters, Watt Hopper is the one that people probably know about because it leads to the Watt Lock. It's a level 1 Thunder, 0 attack, 0 defense. It says your opponent cannot select another face-up Watt monster as an attack target or target them with card effects. So if you have 2 Watt Hoppers on your field, your opponent can't do anything to attack or target your other Watt monsters, and you're just able to attack indirectly over and over again to win the game, right? So this actually gives Watts a game plan. The game plan being set up the Watt Lock, and then bring out your other Watts that can attack directly, poke in directly over time, get some other effects potentially as well. Because they do have some like decent like synchro effects, if I'm remembering correctly. So like Watt Hydra can do some stuff, like Gold Star can use stuff. Watt Chimera, or actually Watt Hydra isn't in the format anymore. It's not in the format yet, so ignore that, I guess. Watt Chimera was the one I was thinking about. It can attack directly and then place a random card from your opponent's hand on top of the deck, so it draw locks them. So if you can like set up a Watt Lock and then get to the Watt Chimera and then attack directly to put things on top, then that's kind of nice. I think the others are like generally not the best. I guess Watt Beta discards card from hand, so like that's kind of nice. But yeah, it's just like not really the best overall. Like I don't know, it's a very fragile combo. Dark Hole exists in the format, which does not target things, just blows up the board. So it's easy to break the lock that way. It's just like kind of rough overall. But it is a game plan for the deck, which is something it did sorely need. It also got Watt Dragonfly to facilitate that game plan. It's level 2 Light Thunder, 9 attack, 1 defense. So if this card is destroyed by your opponent's card, either by battle or card effect, you can special summon 1 Watt monster from your deck. So the idea is if they attack into the Watt Dragonfly, you can bring out a Watt Hopper and then summon out another Watt Hopper on your next turn. And then voila, you've got the Watt Lock set up. So you can also go into another Watt Dragonfly off of this. So there's that as well. But it's just kind of rough. I might make a Watt deck just trying to set up the lock and seeing what it can do. I don't really think that deck would be that good, but maybe it's something. Maybe there's something there. I don't know. Next up, we got Watt Kiwi. I talked about that already. Not really the best, especially since Watt Castle doesn't proc off it, but it's like interesting, I guess. Like I'm not really sure what you would use it for. Like, honestly, it seems like a non-bow with most of these other cards. But I guess it's a tuner at least. So, I guess you can synchro with it. But yeah, pretty bad overall. Watch Squirrel is the last of the Watt monsters, level 3, Light Thunder. Center attack 1 under defense, so this card can attack twice during each battle phase. If this card battles, negate the effects of the monster battled after damage calculation, including in the graveyard. So that's neat. I guess you can pair this with Kiwi to negate your opponent's board. But, like, I don't know. It seems kind of not ideal. Like, I feel like the monsters aren't the biggest threat at that point, right? I mean, I don't know. I guess it does have some value. Like, I guess if you are playing against Gravekeepers and you attack into the spy is effect and negated. So, yeah, I guess there's that. But, like, yeah, I don't know. It just seems underwhelming. Like, the whole deck's kind of underwhelming. But it's here, I guess. I guess this is one of the better ones. But yeah, it's kind of rough overall. Wattkeeper is the last Watt support card I'll talk about here. It's a normal trap, so it's not going to be face up like the Watt Chessman Castle to die the Scrap Crash. But it says select one level 4 or lower Watt monster in your graveyard spell, summon that monster from the graveyard, destroy it during the end phase. So, I don't know. It's a revival. It's kind of like Blackback. It's, against a Gravekeeper format, it's kind of rough, but once Gravekeepers fall out of the metagame, it could potentially be helpful. You can use it to potentially set up a Watt Hopper. I guess you can Wattkeeper, bring back Dragonfly, attacking the opponent's monster, bring out a second Hopper or something. I guess that's something. I don't know. I'm trying to reach here, but this deck is just not really that good. Might not stop me from trying to build it and play it, but yeah, it just seems kind of rough overall. Next up, we've got Kokimeru. Kokimeru got Kokimeru Wall to complete the Guardian and whatever the other one was. Let me look this up real quick. Guardian and Sandman, I believe, right? Yeah, Guardian. Yeah, Sandman. Yeah. So you got the Kokimeru rocks. Sandman negates traps. Guardian negates monsters. Wall negates spells. So basically, 1900 attack, 1200 defense. During each end phase, destroy this card unless you send one Iron Core of Kokimeru from your hand to the graveyard to reveal one rock monster hand. When your opponent activates a spell card, as a quick effect, you can tribute this card and negate the activation if you destroy that card. So, Kokimeru Rock is kind of like online now if you want to do it. If you just want to build a rock deck, you can make that happen, I guess, because you've got 9 pretty good monsters to play around with. The Walls, the Guardians, and the Sandmans. Along with some other rock monsters that you probably fit in there. But yeah, is it good enough in a format like this? I don't necessarily think so, but it is a sort of funny deck that you can try and play. Kokimeru Ring is the last support card here that I'll talk about. It is a normal spell that says reveal one Iron Core of Kokimeru in your hand. Select one face-up monster on the field. Destroy that monster, and both players take 1,000 damage. So, it's kind of like a Ring of Destruction style effect of destroying a thing and then dealing damage to people. But you do have to reveal Iron Core Kokimeru, which is generally a pretty bad card. Kokimeru decks can try and play it. Like, it's something that I've seen people try and build in things like Edison. And you could apply similar principles here. It's not really that good, though. It is pretty bad, actually. Kokimeru as a whole, if you want to play it as a Kokimeru deck as opposed to a specific subtype, is pretty bad. But, I mean, I guess these tools are now here if you want to try that. Anyway, that's going to do it for the legacy support for core sets. I have not talked about legacy support for Hidden Arsenal because there will be a lot of that later on in the video. But before we get into that, I want to talk about some of the more powerful cards of this set. So that'll actually take us away from support for archetypes and actually dive into sort of miscellaneous cards that don't fit into these sort of pre-established strategies. So a bit of a weird ordering, I know. I jumped from, the legacy support for core set archetypes to now just the miscellaneous cards that were released in the set. So, very sort of strange compared to my normal ordering, but I do feel that in a format like this that is dominated by a specific deck, it is important to understand, what is in the format to combat that and, talk about the cards that are sort of individually powerful against that style of thing. And I think because of that, I should talk about Closed Forest. Closed Forest is a field spell and is the reason why this format is based around the El Paso Regional Qualifier from January 2011, because this thing, came out in a promo that was not released at events before this, and this was, I guess, the event that sort of fell into the sweet spot for actually including this in it. But yeah, Close Force is a field spell that says all beast type monster you control gain 1 attack for each monster in your graveyard. That's not the important part. The important part is field spells cannot be activated. Field spell cards cannot be activated during the turn this card is destroyed. So, because Gravekeepers are very dependent on Necro Valley, this is a great side deck card against Gravekeepers. Even if you're not playing beasts, you activate this and can really shut them down until they have some form of removal for it. And even if they do manage to remove it, they then don't get to activate another Necro Valley that turn. So this is basically like a prohibition just on Necro Valley, except a bit better because it can destroy an active Necro Valley on the field when you activate it. It's not perfect. Like MST can stop this thing. But yeah, it is sort of the counterplay of choice that a lot of people do against Gravekeepers. Of course, it is meant to be for beast cards. So like, there are other beasts that sort of pair with it, like Ape Fighter. I believe this might be the eye on the, no, maybe not the eye on the thing, but Ape Fighter is another card, paired with it. Level 4 beast, 19 attack, 1200 defense. It says if this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, this card gains 300 attack. If this card does not attack during your turn, the attack gained from this effect returns to 0 during the end phase of that turn. Very fun card, especially in a limited environment. If you're playing like a draft, this thing is great. Like, it's just a big beater that just gets bigger and bigger. And yeah, so it's a really cool card, I think. I wish that there was a form of a beast deck that was a bit more viable that this thing could be played in like a format like this, but unfortunately that's just not the case. We've also got Roaring Earth as a continuous trap card. This is if a beast type monster you control attacks defense as a monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. If you inflict battle damage to your opponent with this effect, target one face-up monster your opponent controls, that target loses 500 attack and defense. So this thing's not really that good. It just gives piercing to your beasts, so it's just an enraged battle ox in the form of a trap. But the secondary effect probably won't come up that often. It requires the opponent to both have a monster that has a decent attack that you'd actually want to get over, that you need this thing to get over for, while also having a defensive card on their side of the field that you can actually attack over and pierce. So like, it's kind of a weird situation. It can happen, especially against plants, where you can run into like a dandy token that's left over and manage to sink down the attack of a synchro, I guess, that they've got. But it's just not really that good. Like, there are better battle tricks, there are better cards that can apply piercing. There's just better things all around. So, neat flavor-wise, I guess, but not really that good in an actual deck. Next up, we got Chain Dog. This is actually the long-awaited sort of conclusion to a series of cards. Started with Key Mouse and Lock Cat. Chain Dog is a level 4 Earth Beast, 1600 attack, 1100 defense, cannot be used as synchro material except for the synchro summon of a beast type monster. If this card's in the grave, you can special summon this card, and if you do banish it when it leaves the field, you must control exactly 2 beast type monsters to activate and resolve this effect. And you might think, hey, that's a pretty specific effect. Well, the reason why it exists is because, one, you got Key Mouse. Key Mouse, when it's destroyed by battle inside the graveyard, you can add 1 level 3 or lower beast type monster from your deck to your hand. So that's step 1. You get this thing destroyed by battle, and you get to add a level 3 or lower beast monster, which will be Lockcat, a level 3 beast. 1200 attack, 1000 defense. It said when this card normal summon, you can select 1 level 1 beast type monster in your graveyard spell, summon it, and face up defense position. Its effects are negated. And then, so you search out the Lockcat off the Key Mouse, summon out the Lockcat, bring back the Key Mouse, and then you've got 2 beasts on your field. Bam, you get Chain Dog. So, I mean, it's a fun little combo. It's very flavorful. Key Mouse into tuners. You can then go into a level 8 synchro. It's not really that good, especially under Necro Valley, but like, it's fun, and it's like a series of monsters that are drip fed across a couple sets that all pair together in a fun way. So I can't hate this card. It's not good for sure, but like, it is very funny, and I'm glad that they did it. Of course, if we're talking about good synchro plays, Glow Pulp also came out in the set, and this thing is killer. This thing's very good in any deck that wants to mill, but in Plant specifically, it gives the deck, a whole new breath of fresh air. Along with Formula Synchron, this thing opens up a world of possibilities. It's a level 1 plant tuner, 1 attack, 1 defense. It says if this card's in your graveyard, you can send the top card of your deck to the graveyard, and if you do special summon this card, you can only use this effect of Glow Pulp once per duel. So the nice thing about this is that it's Plague Spreader Zombie, but you don't have to stack a card on top of your deck. You can set up your graveyard even further. And it's a level 1, which allows you to go into Formula instead of, Plague Spreader Zombie being level 2 that can't ever go into Formula. So this thing is really, really good, not just for plants, but it especially excels in plants or any mill deck. Yeah, I can't sing this thing's praises enough. It is just so good, and actually makes Plant Synchro a viable deck that you can play in this format, even though it is hurt by Necro Valley. Glow Bulb's not affected by Necro Valley as it moves itself out of the graveyard, so you can still mill and then bring this thing back. Yeah, I just love this card. Very, very strong. Of course, because plants might, potentially have a new dominant thing, there are a variety of ways to counter this and Floodgate, and the biggest one being Vanity's Emptiness. This thing is now in the game. It's a continuous trap. So neither player can special summon monsters if a card is sent from the deck or field to your graveyard. Destroy this card. So this, like Imperial Order, is a one-sided Floodgate. See, the idea on this is that you can use this to stop your opponent's special summon play. Then on your turn, you activate a spell or, send a card to graveyard, and then you get to special summon all you want. So this thing is very, very strong. I think in this form specifically, it doesn't really do too much because Gravekeepers are not a deck that like special summon all that often. It could be a good side deck card against Plant Synchro specifically. So, why not? Just kick the decks that are below Gravekeepers in power level. Sure. But yeah, this thing it's just really, really good and will become even better in later formats. So kind of unfortunate this thing is now in the format, even if it's got a kind of neat card design. Next up, we get Different Dimension Ground. This is a normal trap that says this turn, any monster sent to the graveyard banished instead. So another way to sort of counteract mill decks or Plant Synchro. I think there are better banished cards. We've got Macrocosmos, we've got Dimensional Fisher. We've got other cards legal. But if you just want to set up for one turn, or you're playing a graveyard deck and you want to counter your opponent's graveyard-based deck, then this thing can be the card for you. We've also got Anarchist Monk Ranshin, a level 4 Earth spellcaster, 1800 attack, 100 defense. So if this card is sent from your field to your graveyard by an opponent's card, target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, banish that target. So if Glow Bulb's in grave and this thing comes out and it's sent from field to graveyard by an opponent's card, then you can banish that quite easily. I think it's meant to go along with like the Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer type flavor. We've also got Tokusho of Ghost Destroying to go along with that as well. It's a equip spell that says when the equipped monster inflicts battle damage to your opponent, select up to 2 monsters in your opponent's graveyard and banish them. You can tell that this thing is not that good because it's not received problem-solving card text. Still going off its base errata. But if you really do just want to hate graveyard decks, and you don't want to play Gravekeepers for some reason, this card, I guess, is an option you can use. We've also got some hand traps as well. Skullmeister can be discarded from the hand of the graveyard when a card effect is activated in your opponent's graveyard, and then you can, negate that effect. So we are getting into the era of more hand traps. We saw Veiler introduced in the previous format. Crow obviously is very good. Hanawata was in Frog FTK format, a very good option there too. So hand traps are becoming more prevalent. Are they going to be as prevalent as they are in the modern age? Not for quite some time, but it's still interesting to see the game trying out new things like this. Of course, if we're talking about more iconic hand traps, Droll Knockbird, I mean, this thing is an icon, maybe for not the right reasons later on in the game's history. In this format, I don't think it's that good, but it is something to keep in mind, I guess. It's a level 1 spellcaster, 0 attack, 0 defense. If a card or cards is added from the main deck to your opponent's hand, except during the draw phase, as a quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. For the rest of the turn, cards cannot be added from either player's main deck to the hand. Now, as a note, this can be used when your opponent searches something. It can be used when they draw something. There are a lot of different cases where this can be used. But I think that most decks in the format, while they do often search things, they don't search multiple things a turn, right? Like if you think about Gravekeepers, like they pitch a Commandant for Necro Valley, you activate Droll. They probably only really needed the Necro Valley, right? They're not really doing more with that. If you think about Plant Synchro, I guess like you activate Droll on the draw from formula, but like what else are they doing? Like I can't really think of any other cards they're adding to hand or drawing that turn. So yeah, this thing I think is a tool to know about for the future for sure. But in this format, there's just not really a top deck that cares about this. Lastly, for the new hand traps, we've got Swift Scarecrow, a level 1 Earth Machine, 0 attack, 0 defense. So when an opponent's monster declares a direct attack quick effect, you can discard this card, negate the attack, and then end the battle phase. So this is good in stall decks. It's basically another form of Battle Fader, except you can't then tribute it for a Monarch. So it's fine. Certain decks will want this. Other decks might side it, but overall it's like kind of meh. Yeah, just a good card to have in the format, but like nothing too special. Next up, we got Mischief of the Yokai. I'm just covering all the things that can give your opponent a really annoying or hard time. Mischief of the Yokai is a normal trap that says each face-up monster on the field loses 2 levels until the end phase. You remove this card from your graveyard to select one face-up monster and reduce its level by 1 until the end phase. This effect cannot be activated the turn this card is sent to the graveyard. So, this can be used to stop your opponent's synchro plays. Of course, they can synchro into something else, but if they're going for like the Black Rose, for instance, or they're going for the Stardust, and then you activate this, they'll have to, really dig deep to find something good in their extra deck that they can go into instead. So, decent against certain synchro strategies. I think that because they can still do other things with their monsters on field, I don't really think it's the best compared to some other, sort of floodgates or cards to stop that, but it is an interesting card to be sure. Next up, we got Side Blocker. It's basically Prohibition on legs. Level 4 wind, Psychic, 1200 attack, 300 defense. Says once per turn, you can declare one card with that name, and their effects cannot be used until the end of your opponent's next turn. So, you can shut down your opponent's stuff, like, kind of nicely, but it is a pretty weak monster, so your opponent can just attack over it and shut off that effect. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just fine. I don't know why the TCG was printing so many just, like, floodgates or just unfun cards, but that's what they were doing for this set, I guess. And this one, compared to the rest, is like pretty inoffensive, I would say. Next up, we got Heat Wave. This one is pretty offensive. It's a normal spell that says at the start of your main phase 1, neither player can normal or spell summon effect monsters until your next draw phase. So, kind of like Cold Wave shuts down spell traps, it's meant to shut down monster effects. If you're playing like a beatdown deck, then maybe this can be good, but even beatdown decks often play effect monsters. So I have the inkling that this thing would not be that good in those decks either. But if there ever are normal monster-based decks in the future, then this thing will be very, very good for them. And White Elephant's Gift will be another good card for those decks. It's a normal spell that says, send one face-up non-effect monster you control to the graveyard, draw 2 cards. That's all I can really piece together for, a semblance of segues here. The cards in this set are just like very, very miscellaneous. It's just some very, very strange things that they chose to focus on. There is a set of cards that focus on like when it's sent to the graveyard as a synchro material monster, something happens. So attack gainer is the first of those. Level 1 warrior tuner, 0 attack, 0 defense. And when it's sent to the graveyard as a synchro material monster, and you get to select one face-up monster opponent controls, select monster loses 1000 attack until the end phase. So cool. You get to, make a monster easier to get over by battle. Most of the time, if you're going for the synchro play, you're probably already going to be able to get over whatever your opponent has, but I guess that maybe can come up. It deals a little bit more damage, I guess. So you're dealing more damage than Yield Soldier. Level 1 machine, 1 on attack, 1 on defense. So if this card is used as a synchro material monster for a synchro monster, during battle between that synchro monster and defense monster, defense lower than the attack of the synchro monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. So not a bad effect, but as a level 1 non-tuner, this can be kind of tough to make things with. We've got Vice Berserker as well. This is a level 4 Fiend, 1000 attack, 1000 defense. So if this card is sent to the graveyard as a synchro material monster, inflict 2000 damage to the player that synchro summoned, and the synchro monster that used this card as synchro material gains 2000 attack until the end phase. So the idea with this is that like you're taking 2000, but you're dealing 2000 extra to your opponent. Frankly, it's not ideal, especially in a format with like warning. Yeah, and it's not optional; it is mandatory. So you do have to pay 2000 for making it. So yeah, this thing is just bad. I mean, I think all these things are bad, but like at least they're trying something. I don't know. Once you have a synchro monster on field, there are things you can do with it. In addition, Gravity Collapse is one. The counter trap says when your opponent would summon a monster or monsters, send one face-up synchro monster you control to the graveyard. Negate the summon, and if you do, destroy that monster, and your opponent cannot summon a monster until the end of this turn. So that's a pretty decent effect, I would say. Is it worth sacrificing your own synchro monster? Probably not. But, I guess if you really do want to stop your opponent from doing stuff, you can do that. It just gives up a little bit too much board presence for my liking, especially when you already have warning in the format. If you're willing to get rid of your synchros, the Synchro Soldier is another card that does that. Level 1 Earth Machine, 0 attack, 0 defense. Says 1 per turn during your main phase. You can select one face-up synchro monster you control, banish that face-up synchro monster from play, and inflict 600 damage to your opponent. If you use the effect during your next standby phase, the banished monster returns to the field. So this is a burn card. I can't really think of a good use for this except for maybe like resetting Dark End Dragon's attack stats. But like overall, it is not really that good. We did get more generic synchro monsters in this format as well, though. Lightning Warriors 1. It's level 7 warrior with 1 tuner, 1 or more non-tuners. 2400 attack, 1200 defense. So if this card destroys the opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each card in your opponent's hand. So a bit of a burn effect, which is a trend among some of the other cards as well in this set. 7 Swords Warrior, I think, is a little bit more exciting. The level 7 Warrior Synchro, maybe 1 tuner, 1 more non-tuner monster, 23 attack, 18 defense. It says once per turn, when an equipped card is equipped to this card, inflict 800 damage to your opponent. Once per turn, you can target one equipped card equipped to this card, send to the graveyard. When equipped card equipped to this card, send to the graveyard, except during the damage step. You can target one face-up monster your opponent controls and destroy that target. So this is kind of neat because it burn when you equip it with something, and then it also, pops an opponent's monster as well. So I think that's kind of cool. If you're talking about level 7s, synchros, though, that pop the board, I think Black Rose is a little bit better. But, if you want a generic card against Lightning Warrior is good, and you want to build around, then 7 Swords Warrior can be good. There are some equip spells in this set as well. Although these you probably would not actually want to equip 7 Swords. Cursed Bill, an equip spell, says when the equipped monster is destroyed in this card set to the graveyard, inflict damage to the player who controls the equipped monster equal to the monster's original defense. Really weird equip spell. Like, if you're playing a burn deck, you don't necessarily want to be attacking over your opponent's stuff, like, all too often. And, like, the defense stat on a lot of monsters that they would have out face up to equip this to are not typically that good. So, yeah, I don't really get why this is a thing, but I guess if you want it, you can have it. Acts of Fools is an equip spell. It's sort of a take off of Acts of Despair. It says the equipped monster gains 1,000 attack. Also, its effects are negated. Once per turn during your standby phase, inflict 500 damage to the controller of the equipped monster. So, this will shut off the inflict damage to your opponent thing. And also, actually, will shut off the secondary part of the effect because only the targeting of the equipped spell is cost. So, Axe Fold is kind of a nombo with 7 Swords. But I guess you can pop it through other ways. It's fine. But yeah, it's just kind of rough overall. But because there is an emphasis on burn damage here, there's some naturally ways to stop it. Extra Veiler is a level 2 light spellcaster, 600 attack, 200 defense. Says when your opponent special summons a monster or monsters, except during damage step, you special summon this card from your hand. And if you do, your opponent takes any effect damage you would have taken from their card effects this turn instead. I wonder if this was meant to be a series of Veiler monsters beyond just effect and extra. I mean, we'll see as more cards come out, but this thing is really bad. Just giga bad. One, if it's out on field, your opponent will not activate things to deal effect damage to you because they know about it, right? I guess this is meant to be like, no, because Gores activates in damage steps, so you can't even do that. I was thinking like you do Gores and then use the effect damage thing on it, but that also doesn't special summon. Like, or I guess that wouldn't activate during damage. So I guess like if they summon Gores, you can summon this, and then I think I think Gores would still inflict the damage because I think that's part of the resolution of the effect. I mean, let me read Gores real quick. Yeah, you activate. Okay, I guess you activate as a cost. So I guess if they do effect damage, then you can, sort of summon out Veiler on top of that. But it's just so weird. Such a weird specific instance. But I mean, I guess it's there if you want it. Power Giant is a level 6 rock, 22 attack, 0 defense. You can special summon this card from your hand by sending one level 4 lower monster from your hand to the graveyard. If you do decrease this card's level by the level of that monster, if this card attacked or is attacked, until the end of the damage step, any effect damage you take becomes 0. So it's just a big beat stick that comes out. So that's kind of nice. And the effect damage thing, I guess, is a cherry on top. But it's kind of weird that it's activating it there. I mean, I guess if you attack over like a Desk Koala, that's something. But yeah, just kind of a bizarre effect attack onto this. But again, they're going for like a burn thing, a burn sub-theme, I guess. And so this kind of counteracts that as well. But if you want more things special from hand, read Butterfly is a great thing to do for that. Level 1 Wind, Insect, 300 attack, 600 defense. Says if your opponent controls a face-up synchro monster or monsters, and you control no face-up synchro monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. So this allows you to make sort of synchro plays or just be a tribute fodder for like a Monarch or something. So I guess it's fine for that, just like Power Giant would be. Mirror Ladybug is kind of the worst of these three that special summon from hand for synchro plays. This is an insect level 1, 100 attack, 100 defense. It says if you control at least one face-up monster and you have no monster in your graveyard, special summon this card from your hand. When this card is special summoned this way, this card's level becomes equal to the total levels of all monsters you control. If the level of this card is higher than 12, destroy this card. So There's better cards that special summon from hand. I don't know. And 12 is just like if there are 3 level 4 monsters on field, or if there's like 1 level 8 monster and like one other monster of any type, like this thing is just really bad. Because it just pops itself. So yeah, there are other things to do. I think Reed Butterfly is probably better in almost every situation. But I guess this is like if you want to start off with a bombastic play, you can do that. It's just pretty bad. Star Siphon also does weird things with levels. In a normal trap that says when a synchro monster or monster is special summoned, trigger one of them, special summon 1 Siphon token, which is a dark spellcaster, level 1, 0 attack, 0 defense. Its level becomes that monster's current level, and that monster's level becomes 1. So I use it for synchro plays, but it's kind of a weird combo thing because, like, having a very high leveled non-tuner to then try and do a synchro play with is just kind of awkward for most monsters that you'd want to be going into. So I don't really know why you do this. Maybe you want to get under like level of Mary B or Gravity Bind, but like it's just not good. I mean, I don't know. It's really bad. You can distribute that token for Tyrant's Temper. There's a continuous trap that says tribute 1 monster to activate this card. All face-up monsters on the field that you own are unaffected by other trap cards, which is actually kind of nice. It makes all monsters on your side of the field elemental Wildheart. And this can also be used in response to something like a Mirror Force or a TT, right? You chain this, and then you distribute 1 monster, and then all your other face-up monsters are fine. So I actually do like this a lot. I don't really think it will see much play here, but maybe against like Gravekeepers, because that deck is very trap focused. Maybe it is worth just, throwing in a Tyrant's Temper and just shutting off their traps against your monsters. But I don't quite know. I don't actually think it stops things like, Solemn Warning or Solemn Judgment, because that stops things from even hitting the field, so they wouldn't be face-up monsters for you. But, if that's all you have to worry about, then I think you're in an okay spot. Next up, we have Troposphere. Speaking of things being unaffected by trap cards, there's a level 6 Winged Beast, 24 attack, 2000 defense. So if you tribute summon this card, the tribute must be Winged Beast type. This card is unaffected by the effects of trap cards. So another one like Tyrant's Temper. Much worse, I think. I guess like you can play it in a Blackwing deck, but why do you play this in a Blackwing deck when you play other Blackwings? Like, it's just not really that good. Actually, you compare it with the Scrap monster, right? The Scrap Searcher, I think. Whichever one it was. Scrap Searcher, yeah, you can pair it with that. So maybe a tech card for those decks. I don't know. But yeah, this thing is just not really that good. It feels like it's from a different era of the game. Next up, we got a actually pretty good trap card here. Liberty at Last is a normal trap that says when a monster you control is destroyed by battle, enter the graveyard, target 2 face-up monsters on the field, shuffle those targets into the deck. So this is a use case where, like, if your opponent activates Liberty at Last, like, you'd want to use Tyrant Throws, or you'd want to use, like, well, Troposphere would be effective either way, but, like, there are powerful traps like this in the format that, like, you don't necessarily want to run into. Darkfall is potentially another one, although it's much more specific. It's a normal trap that says when your opponent special summons 2 or more face-up monsters at the same time, send those monsters to the graveyard, then send all monsters in the opponent's hand and deck to the graveyard that have the same name as the monsters sent to the graveyard by this effect. Now, I'm not really sure when you would be doing this. I guess, like, can you even activate this on Dandelion? I don't even know, because I don't think you would send tokens to grave. Rescue Cat is the clear inspiration here, as Exabraria Bellums and Sea Koalas are, falling to their doom, but Rescue Cat's banned. So, I mean, I don't know. This thing is not really that good. When Rescue Cat gets unbanned, maybe it could do something there, but, like, this thing's just pretty bad right now. Defender's Intersect is a normal trap that says activate only during the battle phase. Defense position monsters your opponent controls are changed to phase of attack position, and their effects are negated. So, I mean, it's just a way to get more aggressive, I guess. There are probably better ways to do that, like cards that actually destroy your opponent's monster are probably a bit better, but it's something you can use if you want to. D2 Shield, normal trap that says select 1 face-up defense position monster you control. Its defense becomes double its original defense. So, this can be a nice way to protect a monster from being destroyed by battle. It can be a nice way to deal, battle damage. But this thing, I think, is a little bit too specific, especially because most of the removal in this format is not happening through battle, it's happening through effect. So this thing is not really that good. Next up, we got Half Counter. Similar thing to D2 Shield. Normal trap that says during damage calculation, if a monster you control is being attacked, target that monster you control. That target gains attack equal to half the original attack of the attacking monster until the end of turn. Which is a little bit better than D2 Shield because it implies that the monster attacking in will be destroyed. But again, it's like there's better removal, right? This does happen in damage calc, so at least it's not really respondable, except by counter trap. But like, I don't know. This just seems awkward. It's also not guaranteed. Like if the opponent does have something like a Kalute or an Honest, then this thing's just really bad. And again, there's better removal. Next up, we got Power Breaker. This doesn't tie into the traps at all. Really. I guess it destroys a trap card, but potentially. But yeah, it's just these last two monsters, I could not fit them in anywhere thematically, so I'm just covering them here. This is a level 4 warrior, 1900 attacks or defense. It says if this card in your possession is destroyed by your opponent's attack or card effect and sent to your graveyard, target one face-up spell trap card your opponent controls. Destroy that target. If this card attacks, it is changed to defense position at the end of the damage step. So this is not good. I mean, it's a beater, I guess, but there are better beaters in the format. Your opponent will know when they're destroying this thing most of the time. So unless you like set it, but they'll be able to play around the spell trap destruction. I guess in a case like Gravekeepers, they wouldn't necessarily be able to play around it because like, I guess you can crash it into a Gravekeeper. It just seems really bad. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what deck would want to play this, but it's a neat card for draft, I guess. Like, I think there are a lot of good cards here for like limited formats, right? Like Ape Fighter, Power Breaker, like those things could work in a draft setting. It's just the competitive sort of scene where it's like, if you want to play the format as it was at like a tournament, so not draft, it's pretty rough for that. Rescue Warrior is a level 4 Earth Warrior, 600 attack, 1700 defense. It says you take no battle damage from battles involving this card. If this card is destroyed by battle, select one face-up monster opponent controls that you own and take control of it. So very specific use case. It's used against Goyo. That's like pretty much it. Yeah, it's very strange. I like that this card exists in theory, but like in practice, it's never going to get used. Anyways, that does it for sort of the miscellaneous non-archetypal cards here, and that also does it for, frankly, like the good cards in this set. Starstrike Blast was a pretty underwhelming core set, in my opinion, and the Hidden Arsenal cards that were added in the Hidden Arsenal sets were not really much better. So I will cover them, but frankly, they're not really going to be meta relevant outside of some very, very niche exceptions. And there's a lot of chaff here. I think it's interesting, though, that like there's so much pack filler here when there weren't really any new interesting archetypes added to the format. So actually, let's dive into the new archetypes before diving into the Hidden Arsenal Legacy support. Because I do think it's fascinating that at a time where Yu-Gi-Oh! Seemed to be heading more and more towards archetypal decks, this format didn't really add any new archetypes. Now, I've sort of stretched the definition of archetype in some cases here, I will admit. But the first two archetypes that I'll discuss actually are like full-fledged archetypes that are, pretty good. And I do like the flavor of. So firstly, we get Karakuri. I think this is the more well-formed archetype at this point. This is basically a series of monsters that are supposed to be robots, and they must attack if able. So just like robots, they have to follow that robotic command to attack and attack and attack. But if it's, if they're attacked, they actually switch to defense position. So it's kind of neat. And like, they also have effects based around like switching, battle position. And it's just kind of a cool archetype. They'll get even cooler when new support comes out. But the initial wave of support was, honestly pretty good. Or the initial wave of cards, that is, was pretty decent. They've got a searcher, Inishichi. I'm not going to read like the whole name. I'm just going to read their quotation name, because it's a lot for these. But Inishichi is a machine, 500 attack, 1500 defense. So this card must attack if able. When this face-up attack position card select an attack target, change defense position, as I mentioned. But when it's normal summoned, you get to add one Karakuri card from your deck to your hand. So that can be a monster, or it can be some of these spell traps. So this thing, I think, is very, very good for the deck. Very good searcher. That can then set you up for what you need for coming turns. Nishipachi here is a strategist. He is a tuner, 500 attack, 1600 defense, And I'm not going to read the whole must attack if able, switch to defense position. I'm just going to read the additional effect that this has. When normal summoned or special summoned, you can select one monster on the field and change its battle position. That can be your opponent's monster. It can also be one of your Karakuri monsters. So, for instance, you could summon this thing out, switch it to defense if you don't want to attack in to your opponent's stuff. And, of course, this will trigger certain spells and traps that I will talk about shortly. I just want to get through the monsters first, as I feel like understanding the monster line can be a bit more important here. Now, as a note, this is a tuner. It is one of only 2 tuners that the deck has right now. The other tuner is Shinkuro, which is not as good. It's a 4 attack, 4 defense point machine tuner. And its special thing is that 1 per turn it can't be destroyed by battle. So, it stays alive potentially, but I think that Nishipachi has more flexibility. And also, its level lineup actually goes better into the Synchro monster, which is Beret. It's a level 7 machine Synchro, 2600 attack, 1900 defense. Made with 1 tuner or 1 or more non-tuner machine type monsters. When it's Synchro summoned, you can special summon 1 character monster from your deck, and then once per turn, you can target 1 monster on the field and change its battle position. So, this has an effect kind of like Nishipachi. I can also bring out something like Nishipachi from the deck. Bring out Nishipachi doesn't really help because this has to be normal summon to get its effect off. But, you have a variety of different things that you can do depending on what you want to happen that turn. So, I like Beret. I think he's kind of cool. And in future iteration of the deck, it'll get even better. We've also got Nisamu. This is the recruiter for the deck, 14 attack, 200 defense. His special thing is that when destroyed by battle instead of the graveyard, you can special summon 1 level 4 lower Karakuri monster from your deck in face-up attack position. So this can be used in a variety of ways. If your opponent's attacking into stuff, you can use it to, 1, get out Nisamu, just keep that recruiter chain going. Or you can potentially set up a Shinkuro as just a monster difficult for your opponent to get over. You can also, if you're getting aggressive, you can attack him with Nisamu and then bring out like Muza Nishicha. No, Muza. I'm just gonna call this Bushi, actually, as opposed to Muza Nishicha. Yeah, I can't pronounce that. My Japanese is too rusty. It's a level 4 machine, 1800 attack, 600 defense. And its special thing is that if another Karakuri monster on the field is destroyed, this card gains 400 attack. So if you've got like multiple Nisamus, or you just got this and a Nisamu, you can like crash Nisamus into your opponent's stuff, buff up the Bushi, and potentially end on like a Shinkuro or a Nishipachi or something like that. And this thing can get buffed to like pretty high attack stats there. Lastly, we got Sazonk. This is sort of an odd one out. It's a level 3 machine, 1200 attack, 1200 defense. And when this card flip face up, you select 1 face up monster on the field, send it to the graveyard. During the turn this card flip face up, it can attack your opponent directly. So it is kind of weird because it like wants to be set. And of course, if you change the battle position of a set monster, switch to attack, flip up, and then get the effect off. So it ties in that way. But it feels a bit slower than what the deck wants to be doing. The deck wants to be like summoning out things and, making battle position changes happen, where this like takes a turn to really operate. So that makes it kind of an odd one out. Not necessarily a bad card, but a card that, you have to think about carefully when actually fitting it into a Karakuri deck. But you may wonder, what's the point of all this battle position changing? Well, that's because they've got some pretty busted support cards here that, take advantage of that. Karakuri Anatomy is the first one to continue a spell that says each time a Karakuri monster battle position change, place 1 Karakuri counter on this card, max 2. You send this card from the field to the graveyard to draw 1 card for each Karakuri counter on it. So it's like 6 Samurai United in that way. Very, very easy to set up. You could just summon a Inashichi, search this thing out, activate it, and then when the Inashichi switches to defense upon being attacked, this thing can get a counter on it right away, and then next turn if you go Nishipachi, switch to defense, then this thing is 2, and then you can draw 2, and yeah, so also with like Beret, Beret can basically set that up very easily as well. So yeah, this thing is great at just increasing the consistency of your deck and getting those draws in. Karakuri Trick House is probably the best trap of the deck. So normal trap says activate only when the battle position of a face-up Karakuri monster you control is changed. Select 1 card on the field and destroy it. So again, another benefit for changing the battle position of your Karakuris. The awkward thing is that like this one does not actually work with switching up Sazonk from defense to attack position. So that's kind of awkward. But if you're switching up Sazonk from defense to attack position, you're already getting rid of something on the field. So not the worst restriction to have. Karakuri Clock is probably the biggest boom that this deck can do. This is a normal try. This is activate only when a face-up defense position Karakuri monster is selected as an attack target. Destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. So this is basically like Mirror Force, except a little bit better. But your monster already has to be in defense, so that makes it a little bit awkward, but you can easily set that up with your other Karakuri stuff. Of course, Clock, once your opponent knows about Clock, they are probably going to play a bit differently to avoid it. But even doing that helps you out too, because like, it's just them not attacking it, right? So you can set up for your synchro plays and other things like that. So Clock, very good. Karakuri Showdown Castle is the field spell for the deck. It says when I face up Karakuri monster you control, selects an opponent's face-up monster as an attack target. You can change the target's battle position. When this face-up card in the field is destroyed and set to the graveyard, you can select one level 4 or higher Karakuri monster in your graveyard, spell summon it. That last part is really the main important part of the deck. We could potentially set up for special summoning things out from grave and setting up future plays. However, this is kind of underwhelming, especially in a Gravekeeper-focused format. If they activate Necro Valley and pop this thing, then this thing will actually not trigger its effect. Well, it won't trigger it anyways, I guess, because it will miss timing, I think. But it wouldn't anyways, because Necro Valley will prevent it from coming back from grave. So, yeah, this thing is not ideal, but it's something. At least the deck has a field spell that does something marginal. Golden Gearbox is a quick play spell that says select one face-up Karakuri monster on the field, gain 500 attack and 1500 defense until the end phase. This can be used defensively or it can be used offensively to get over some stuff. Not the best thing in the world, but not the worst either. There are probably better cards to play instead of this, but if you want to play it, you can. Lastly, there's Karakuri Spider. This isn't really a part of the archetype. It is a machine, I guess. But it's mainly just an older card that was around in the OCG that got reprinted in the TCG around this time. So this has 400 attack, 500 defense. So if this card attacks a dark monster, destroy the attack target after damage calc. So really bad card. It's a DM era card, really, just transplanted to the modern 5Ds era. But it's here if you want to play with it. Now, of course, it's important to note that while these Karakuris might look really cool on paper, you do run into the problem that most machine decks run into, where if your opponent has a Cyber Dragon, they can just easily wipe your entire board with a Chimeric Fortress Dragon. So that is something to keep in mind. But there are ways to play around that. And, the deck is fun enough that I think, don't let it deter you. If that is the thing keeping you off this deck, don't let that deter you from actually, trying it out and trying to play it. Next up, we got Dragoonides, another deck that, needs a little bit more support cards to, actually reach its peak, but it's still kind of interesting at a base level. Basically, Dragoonides are made up of Winged Beasts and Dragons, and they try and equip things to themselves. So, for instance, Dragooning Legionnaire, level 3 Wind, Winged Beast, 1200 attack, 800 defense. Says when this card normal summon, you can target one level 3 or lower Dragon, Dragooning monster in your graveyard. Equip that target to this card. You can send one Dragooning card from your spell traps on to the graveyard. Then target one face-up monster opponent controls to destroy that target. So the idea with this is you can summon out Dragooning Legionnaire, equip a Dragooning Dragon like Phalanx or Dark Spear to it. And then you can send that to the graveyard to pop something if you want to. There are other things to do with this, though. Phalanx, actually, when it's equipped to a monster, you can actually spell summon this equipped card, and it is a tuner. So that allows you to go instantly into a level 5 synchro monster here. Unfortunately, you don't have many options in the Dragooni archetype, but Catastrophe is a good one. There are other level 5 tuners that you'd want to go into here. If you do want to go into the Dragooni synchros themselves, though, you're better off doing it with Dux. Dux is a level 4 Winged Beast, 1500 attack, 1000 defense, gains 200 attack for each Dragooni card you control. This includes cards in the spell trap zone. And then when this card is normal summoned, you can target one level 3 or lower Dragon, Dragooni monster in your graveyard, equip that target to this card. So, you summon out Dux, equip Phalanx, special summon out Phalanx, and then go for your synchro play into one of the many level 6 Dragooni monsters. I think the best one of these is Vajrayana. This is a level 6 Dragooni monster, made with one Dragon Tuner and one or more non-tuner Winged Beast monsters. 1900 attack, 1200 defense. It said when this card synchro summon, you can target one level 3 or lower Dragooni monster in your graveyard. Equip that target to this card. And then once per turn, you send one equipped card equipped to this card to the graveyard. Double this card's attack until the end of the turn. So 3800 attack is a fair bit. So that is pretty good. But ideally, what makes this card the best of the Dragooni monsters here is that you can add a Phalanx to it and then special summon out Phalanx and then go for a level 7 or another synchro play. So I like Vajrayana because it leads to the most laddering. But there isn't really anything to ladder into, unfortunately, here beyond just like level 8, right? Because there's a level 6, Phalanx is level 2, so it gets you an instant level 8 off of like one summon. So I guess that is pretty good in this format, but like, again, Gravekeeper's best deck, so, you know, it's a bit harder to do that there when that's preventing things from equipping from Grave. But if you want a different card, you can go Gay Derg. Is a level 6 dragon with 1 dragon tuner and 1 or more non-tuner winged beast monsters, 24 attack, 800 defense. So once per turn, you can add 1 level 4 lower dragon or winged beast monster from your deck to your hand, then discard 1 dragon or winged beast monster. So this sets up your graveyard. If you can't quite get into the Phalanx and like you need that, you can use this to dump the Phalanx very easily. It's also got more attack than the Vajrayana, so that can come up as well. But I mean, it's not the best thing in the world. It's just mainly to set up stuff. So if you do want to play this deck and, you know, want to have a consistent setup for Phalanx, then there's potentially a way to do that. But yeah, it's not really that good beyond it. Gabolg is probably the worst of these in my opinion. It is a, you know, level 6 dragon, maybe 1 dragon tuner, 1 or more non-winged beast monsters, 2000 attack, 1100 defense, said once per battle. If this card battles during the damage step at a quick effect, you can banish 1 winged beast monster from your graveyard. This card gains that monster original attack until the end of the turn. So not terrible, but it's just basically a beater at a level 6, which I don't really think is super necessary. I guess like, yeah, I can go up to like 35 off of Dux or, you know, 32 off of Legionnaire, which is enough to get over pretty much anything that you'd want. But then those cards are like out of your graveyard if you want to, you know, do other things with them. So not terrible, but it's just basically a beat stick. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about the synchros. There are some other main decks as well. Dragini Darkspear is another level 3 dragon tuner, 1000 attack, 1000 defense. So once per turn, you contribute 1 Dragini monster, or 1 dragon Dragini monster. Then target 1 level 4 lower winged beast monster in graveyard, special summon that target. So if you do wind up with just a lone Phalanx on the board, you can summon out Darkspear, tribute that, and then bring back a winged beast to then go into a synchro play. You can also tribute itself, so you can summon this out, tribute it, then bring back like a Dux or a Legionnaire. Unfortunately, these only trigger on normal, so it's not really the best for there. I guess you can bring back Tribus. Tribus actually triggers on special summon. It's a winged beast, 500 attack, 300 defense. It says when normal special summon, you can send 1 level 3 or lower dragon monster from your deck to the graveyard. So this again is more graveyard setup for your Dragini stuff. But overall, if you want to make a whole deck out of this package, it's going to be a bit tough. You need to wait for more cards in this archetype to actually come out before this deck actually becomes playable in any meaningful capacity. Now, the last 2 things I'll talk about here are kind of stretching the meaning of archetype, but they're cards that like specifically pair with each other, so they kind of make a tiny little archetype, you know. Temple of Kings is the first one. This card is banned on release, so can't play it. But, you know, it's still interesting to talk about. Basically, you know, you can activate this, and the errata text says that you can activate 1 trap card at the turn of a set. I believe when, you know, first came out, you could actually activate as many trap cards as you want the turn they were set, which makes the thing a little bit too good, kind of like Makura the Destructor. And then you could send it, you can send 1 mystical Beast of Circuit in your monster zone, and this card you control the graveyard. Special summon 1 monster for your hand or deck, or 1 fusion monster for your extra deck. So it's basically a free special summon of like anything, which is also very strong. Although it is hard getting mystical Beast of Circuit on the field. It's level 6. Fairy, 2500 attack, 2000 defense. It says if you do not control Temple of Kings, destroy this card. So while you could play it, it's basically no reason to in a format where Temple of Kings is banned. You banish any monster destroyed by battle with this card. If this card destroys a monster by battle, gain 500 attack. So, of course, if you ever had this out with the Temple of Kings, you probably just immediately send them to grave, because you could definitely find a better card than Mystical Beast of Circuit in your extra deck or main deck. So, yeah, kind of a weird sort of duo here. But I figured I'd talk about them since they are kind of their own little mini archetype. I don't know if you call a pair of cards that synergize like that an archetype, but I'm doing it. It's my video. I'll call it what I want. Next up, we got Spellstone stuff. This is also kind of like a weird thing to call an archetype, but they both use Spellstone counters, and as far as I can tell, nothing else in the game used that. And this guy's called Spellstone. So, like, you know, I'll call him an archetype. Just a mini archetype. So Spellstone Sorcerer Karud says, once per turn, when another monster's effect is activated, while there is no Spellstone counter on this card, place 1 Spellstone counter on this card. Max 1, this card gains 300 defense, and having 800 attack, 1900 defense. It's already a formidable defense stat, but this can, I guess, go up to 2200, so it's more of a defensive card there. And then once per turn, you can remove one spellstone counter from your side of the field. Select one card in your opponent's graveyard and remove that card from play. So just like as I talked about with the sort of miscellaneous cards, again, more graveyard hate that you can put into the format. And as a note, you don't have to remove the spellstone counter from itself. It's just from your side of the field, which plays into Power Sink Stone, which is a continuous trap that says each time a monster effect is activated, place one spellstone counter on this card. When that effect resolves, while this card has two spellstone counters, neither player can activate the effective face-up monster on the field. Also, the effective face-up monster on the field are negated once per turn during the end phase. If the card has any spellstone counters, remove them. So, what you can do with this is this Power Sink Stone has no Power Sink Stone has one spellstone counter on the field. You activate Spellstone Sorcerer Karud, get rid of that counter, and banish a card from grave, and then it immediately gets back the other counter, because that will count as a monster effect resolving. Or activating, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's just not really that good. If you want to banish things from grave, there are better ways to do it besides this 2-card combo. So yeah, it's really bad. But it is sort of a mini archetype, so I figured I would talk about it. But it is kind of wild to me that this is all we get in terms of new archetypes. I guess they are trying to lean heavily on supporting the older archetypes they've introduced. But a lot of that support is not really that good, as we'll see very shortly. The only good archetype support that they released was Recruiter, which was broken. Just absolutely busted for the Gravekeeper deck. So yeah, I don't think Starstrike Blast and the associated hidden arsenals that go into Starstrike format were that good, but I'm hoping for better set design, going further into the 5Ds era and into early Zexal as well. I know that my hopes will not quite be fulfilled in what is coming, but I can have those hopes regardless. Anyways, let's dive into the other support cards released this set for the older archetypes already in the format. Here we go, simultaneously the biggest page I have to cover and also the most useless one as well, because this will cover the archetype support for hidden arsenal archetypes. So this is what I meant where they're really focusing on the old archetypes that they've already introduced. I think they really wanted hidden arsenal archetypes to, actually take off and, be their own things that were somewhat competitive. So they really tried to put a lot into supporting them. Unfortunately, the support for these are largely bad. There are some exceptions, which I'll talk about, but mostly these cards are not really ever going to see play. If you want to build a deck out of them, you can try, but it's going to be a bit tough, especially in Gravekeeper's format, which is just shutting down a lot of what some of these decks want to do. Anyways, the most significant card from the support is Naturia Barkion. This is a Naturia Synchro made with 1 Earth Tuner and 1 or more non-tuner Earth monsters, 25 attack, 18 defense. So when a trap card is activated, you can quick effect banish 2 cards from your grave, negate the activation, and if you do destroy that card, this card must be face up on the field to activate and resolve this effect. So just like the Naturia Beast, this thing can shut down an entire type of card. Unfortunately, it can't activate under Necro Valley because you have to banish 2 cards from grave. But if you're not faking Gravekeepers and you're up against a deck playing normal traps, and you're playing an Earth deck like X-Sabers or something, then you can potentially bring this thing and shut down those traps. So this will also have, staying power in future formats for Earth decks, which is a good synchro to go into if you can go into it. So I figured I would mention it here. Of course, the other Naturia monsters and spells and traps released were not really as good. There are some that we'll see play later on, like Naturia Cherries. There was a popular Naturia Cherries deck that you can make because the level 1 plant tuner, 200 attack, 200 defense. So if this card is sent from your field to the graveyard by an opponent's card, you're supposed to summon up to 2 Naturia Cherries from your deck and face on defense position. So there was a deck that basically just used this to get out 2 tuners onto the field and then make things happen from there. I don't know if that deck was really that good. I doubt it was good in Starstrike format, but it's something that you can play if you want to. The other monsters, I'm not even going to try and organize these into a reasonable order here. I'm just going to go through them one by one alphabetically because they all kind of do different things. They never quite completely synergize with each other. There's no set combos that you can do. They all kind of do their own thing with the general intention of making it hard for your opponent to do things, but they never quite succeed at that. So Naturia Cliff is the next one. Level 4 Earth Rock, 1500 attack, 1000 defense. So when this card is sent from the field of the graveyard, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower Naturia monster from your deck and face up attack position. So, I mean, this is a recruiter for the deck. Fine. it is what it is. I guess it can trigger off your other things, which is kind of nice because there are some Naturias that like tribute things on your side of the field. So if you tribute this and it doesn't miss timing somehow, then you can special summon out something. But like being able to miss timing is very rough for this thing. Dragonfly is a level 4 Earth Insect, 1200 attack, 400 defense, can't be destroyed by battle with a monster that has 2000 more attack and gains 200 attack for each Naturia monster in your graveyard. So if you set up your graveyard with a bunch of Naturia monsters, this thing can be very hard to out by battle. Unfortunately, as I've mentioned before, there are a lot of ways to remove things not by battle in this format. So a neat draft card. I think Naturia monster would be neat to have in like a cube, but frankly, for this format, if you want to play constructed, it's not really that good. Fruit Fly here, level 3 insect, 800 attack, 1500 defense. Says all monsters your opponent controls lose 300 attack and defense for each Naturia monster you control. Once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls with 0 defense. Take control of that target until the end phase. So this is kind of a neat card where it's debuffing your opponent's monsters, and then when they're debuffed enough, you get to take one. So that's cool in theory. However, you know, max, you're decreasing the defense by 1500. If you look at most synchro monsters, they're going to have a defense much higher than that. So you can't really take those, and those are like the biggest monsters to have in the format. Other than that, like you've got Gravekeepers doing their thing, and those monsters also have pretty high defense stats, especially under Necro Valley. So you're never really going to be taking those either. So this thing is just not really that good. It also has a non-bow with a Dragonfly, because Dragonfly, you know, can survive against monsters that have 2000 or more attack, whereas the thing drops them below that level. So that's kind of rough. I mean, I guess you could argue that Dragonfly is more easily able to get over things and beat them down, but it's still kind of rough overall. Next up, we got Horn Needle, level 4 Earth Insect, 800 attack, 100 defense. When your opponent special summons a monster or monsters, as a quick effect, you contribute one other face-up Naturia monster you control and destroy that monster. Again, a big problem with this card is that is telegraphed. Your opponent will know that it can activate that, and so they can choose to play into it or not play into it as they wish. So it's not really that good. Again, maybe a neat draft card, but here it's just pretty bad. Hydrangea, level 5 Earth Plant, 19 attack, 2000 defense. During your turn, if the effective Naturia monster was activated on your field, you're supposed to summon this card from your hand. Now, the tricky thing about this is that a lot of your Naturia cards are reactive. So, you know, oftentimes they're reacting to things that are happening on your opponent's turn. And so you're not going to be able to special summon the thing out super easily. I mean, there are some exceptions. Like, if your opponent activates a Call of the Haunted into a Horn Needle, then, like, maybe you'll be able to do it. But, like, again, your opponent will know about the Horn Needle. So why would they activate Call of the Haunted into that? Like, it's just very, very strange. Not really that good. I mean, there are some other things, too. I guess, like, you can summon up Pumpkin. Pumpkin is a level 4 plant, 14 attack, 8 defense. Says when this card is normal summoned, while your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon one Naturia monster from your hand. So, like, I guess if you use this to special summon out, like, a Horn Needle, and then you've activated Naturia, so you bring out Hydrangea. But do you really want to have that density of Naturia monster in your hand? Because it's probably a pretty bad hand, because the Naturia monsters at base are pretty bad. These synchros are the only good things about them. So, yeah, it's just kind of rough. I mean, you can bring out, like, Stag Beetle. Stag Beetle's pretty good. Stag Beetle's level 6, 22 attack, 15 defense, is 1 per turn during the battle step or damage step of this card's attack. When your opponent activates a card or effect, you can select one Naturia monster in your graveyard, special summon that monster from the graveyard. However, if your opponent's activating a card or effect in the battle step or damage step, you're probably losing that battle, so you're losing the Stag Beetle. So you do get a Naturia monster back, true, but, like, you're losing your monster, so it's, like, very tricky. And again, your opponent will know about this, so they can play into it or not play into it as they wish, unless they have a mandatory effect that's activating during the battle step or damage step. But, like, I don't know, this archetype really tires me out, man. It's just like, it's so close to greatness, but it's just every time you think about the cards for more than, like, skin level, it is just really bad. Sunflower is a level 2 Naturia monster, plant, 500 attack, 0 defense. When your opponent's monster effect is activated, a quick effect, you contribute one Naturia monster and this card, negate the activation, you destroy that card. So you're losing 2 cards to trade with their 1. I mean, it's just bad. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to say about these anymore. They're just, like, they're not good enough. And again, your opponent will know about this, so it's like they can play into it or not play into it as they wish. So it's just kind of awkward. Like, the ideal that this deck wants to do is just force your opponent into, like, really tricky spots where they're like, okay, I need to bait out the Horn Needle, or I need to bait out, like, you know, the Sunflower, and, like, clear this away so I'll do a better thing later. But, like, realistically, the cards are just bad enough where they're not going to be forced into those positions. Like, they're worried about a Sunflower, they're just going to summon something out and attack into it. Like, It's just so rough. Oh, man. Tulip's the last of the monsters here. A level 2 plant tuner. 600 attack, 1500 defense. So each time your opponent activates a spell trap card for the rest of this turn, all Naturia monsters you control will gain 500 attack. Awesome. Again, another card that they can play into if they want. Naturia monsters are weak enough already that this won't really help them too much. It's just really bad overall. The spells and traps are like fine. Barkion's Bark is basically a cold wave for a turn. It's an activate only if you control a face-up Naturia monster. Your opponent cannot activate trap cards this turn. Actually, it's more of a trap stun this turn. I don't know, like, it's fine. But, like, Naturia is not a deck that's, like, doing a big combo play where they'd be like, oh, I really need to shut down my opponent's traps so I can do this play. Unless you're worried about, like, Solemn Warning on, like, a Barkion or a Beast. It's just not really going to come up. Leodric's main. Normal spell is to select one face-up Naturia monster you control. Its attack becomes 3,000 and its effects are negated until the end phase. So this allows you to become a bit more of a beatdown style deck. But again, that's not what this deck wants to be doing. If you give the deck enough tools doing completely different things, it won't make the deck better. It will just give the deck more bad options, which is what this is doing, really. So, yeah, not that good. Stru's Fane, counter trap, says activate only if you control a face-up Naturia monster and have at least one card in your hand. Negate the activation of an opponent's spell trap card and destroy it. Then send one card from your hand to the graveyard. Basically just a magic jammer or a trap jammer. But you need a Naturia monster on field, which is a bit of a tough ask a lot of the time. So, you know, in a perfect world, this would be the best of the Naturia cards, but here it's just pretty bad. Moving on, the next marginally, like, better thing that you could potentially play is Ally of Justice Cycle Reader. There's a hand trap that can be good against light decks. It's a level 3 machine tuner, 1000 attack, 1000 defense. Says you can discard this card to the graveyard as a quick effect and then target up to 2 light monsters in your opponent's graveyard, banish those targets. So if you're up against Lightsworn specifically, this is a good side deck card for that. If you're not against that in this format, it's pretty bad, but it can have some use in later formats potentially. The Ally of Justice Synchro monster that was also introduced here is also pretty decent. Ally of Justice Decisive Armor, the level 10 Dark Machine, made generically with 1 tuner or 2 or more non-tuner monsters, 3300 attack, 3300 defense. There's 1 per turn. If your opponent controls a light monster, you can activate one of these effects. Target one set card your opponent controls, destroy that target. Send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard, destroy all spell trap cards your opponent controls, or send your entire hand to the graveyard, look at your opponent's hand, and send all light monsters in their hand to the graveyard. Then inflict damage to your opponent equal to the total attack of those monsters sent to the graveyard. So, because of the generic synchro, it could potentially see a spot in an extra deck. I mean, it's a big beater, 3300 attack. There are probably better things that you can make if you have a tuner and some amount of non-tuners. But if you do want to make this, I guess it can come up occasionally, especially against Lightsworn. It's just not really that good, though. Next up, we got Ally of Justice Omni Weapon, a level 5 machine, 2200 attack, 800 defense. If this card destroys a light monster by battle, send it to the graveyard. Draw 1 card, and if you drew a level 4 or lower dark monster, you can reveal that card and special summon it. So this thing would be crazy if this deck was actually good. Unfortunately, it's not. I mean, I guess if you DNA transplant your opponent and try and get this thing up as like a value engine, it could potentially work. But like, I don't know. That seems just bad. Seems really bad. So then you also have to like get out on the field somehow. It's level 5 monster. Like, there's just better things you could be doing in this format. Ally of Justice Quarantine is actually probably pretty decent. It's basically Consecrated Light, but for light monsters. So it's level 4 dark. And 1700 attack, 1200 defense. Neither player can spell summon light monsters. So that's kind of cool. Unfortunately, light decks, you know, can just summon out a monster and honest over this thing. So, you know, it's not really the best, but if you are up against one of those decks and you're like, I really need a way to stop the special summons, this could potentially be that. So Ally of Justice actually did not receive as much support as it had in the past, which I'm glad about because this deck's super bad. It's just giga bad. But then again, a lot of these archetypes are, and that's what's getting support. So, yeah, we got more to go through here. I'm going to talk about Worms next because Worms, Zex, and Yagan is actually kind of a cool combo that does see play later on in this format. It's not as good. I mean, I guess the Yagan can remove itself from grave, so it gets around Necker Valley. But just kind of tricky. So, Worms X, level 4, light reptile, 1800 attack, 1000 defense. When this card normal summon, you can send 1 reptile type worm monster from your deck to the graveyard. Actually, a typo on DB. Monster form. Interesting. Okay, I wonder if there's a way to report that. If you control a face-up Worm Yagan, this card cannot be destroyed by battle. What's Worm Yagan? Well, I'm glad you asked. It is this guy, level 4, with the reverse of Zex's stats here. 1000 attack, 1800 defense. If the only monster you control is Worm Zex, you can special summon this card from your graveyard in face down defense position. If you do remove it from play, when it is removed from the field, and when this card is flipped face up, select one face up monster your opponent controls and return it to the owner's hand. So a bounce is pretty nice. So the idea is you summon up Zex, you pitch Yagen, Yagen brings itself back, Yagen's a bounce. It's just kind of a neat little combo there that sees play in later formats. I don't know if you can really do enough in this format. I mean, let me check. W. Yeah, okay, so it's an OCG card at this point. But yeah, W Nebula Meteorite would be the best way to take advantage of this. Unfortunately, it's not in the format at this point. So you just have Zex and Yagen. Not ideal. It's still better than what Worm has been doing in the past, but still not great. Next up, we've got Worm Solid. It's a level 4 reptile, 1000 attack, 600 defense. So this card gains 100 defense for each reptile type worm monster in your graveyard. And if your opponent takes battle damage from attacking this card at the end of the damage step, select one spell trap card your opponent controls and destroy it. So this is a card that benefits from having more worms in grave. Zex can set that up, but there are other ways to set this up as well, namely through Worm Zero. This is a new boss monster for the deck. It's a level 5 light reptile fusion, question mark attack 0 defense, made with 2 or more reptile type worm monsters. For each fusion material monster with a different name, use fusion summon this card, it gains 500 attack and also gains these effects. If you use 2 or more, once per turn you can select one reptile type monster in your graveyard, special summon it in face down defense position, so that's setting up your worm cards to do stuff. 4 or more, you can remove from play one reptile type monster from your graveyard, send one monster on the field of the graveyard, so that's removal. And then 6 or more, once per turn, you can draw one card. So that is a very good effect if you can get off all of them. Future Fusion is the way to go for this thing. You can Future Fusion bin a bunch of worms and then bring this thing out at big attack stat, removal, drawing a card as well, like setting up your worms. Very good if you're able to stick this thing. Big if though, there's a lot of removal in this format. This does not have protection for removal, so might be a bit tough there. But if you're able to pull this thing off and actually manage to land it on the field and protect it, then that's going to be quite good for you. Worm Victory is another way to take advantage of worms in grave. Level 7 reptile flip, 0 attack, 2500 defense. Says flip, destroy all face-up monsters on the field except reptile type worm monsters. This card gains 500 attack for each reptile type worm monster in your graveyard. So, again, just like with 0, having this thing with a lot of attack, very good. Also, the flip effect is very good as well. We've also got Worm Tentacles, a level 4 reptile, 1700 attack, 700 defense. It said one per turn. You can remove from play one reptile type worm monster in your graveyard to allow this card to attack twice during the same battle phase. So a way to get more damage in. Not ideal because you're removing from play your worms, which you want in grave for your victory, maybe even your solid, but definitely your 0. So yeah, I don't think it's the best, but it is fine, I guess. Worm Warlord is a pretty cool tribute. Level 6 light reptile, 2350 attack, 1800 defense. And this card cannot be special summoned, which is a big downside to it, but its effect is pretty good. Negate the effects of all effect monsters destroyed by battle with this card. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, it can attack once more in a row. So you bring this thing out, run over your entire board, your opponent's entire board, negate the effects of monster it destroys. That, I guess, is a Gravekeeper counter. If they don't have Necro value up, you can run over Spy, prevent its effect from going off. You can run over Recruiter, prevent its effect from going off. So, I think that's cool. Like, is it good enough to compete in this format? I don't necessarily think so, but if you're able to get it out and stick it and protect it, then that can be quite good. Worm Ugly is also a cool way to bring it out. So, level 1 light reptile, 100 attack, 100 defense. Says when you tribute summon a reptile type worm monster by tributing this card, you're supposed to summon this card from your graveyard to your opponent's side of the field in attack position. So if you tribute this for a warlord, then you get to immediately attack into it, deal 2250 damage to your opponent, and then attack into something else. So I do like this little combo. It's kind of funny. Is it good? Probably not. But is it funny? Definitely. So this does complete the alphabet for worms. So if you didn't notice, they've been going worm A at Apocalypse, now to Z with 0. And I believe that is it for the alphabet here. So I don't know if there's going to be much more worm cards coming out. But still, I'm glad that they have Boss Monster now. And I've always had a soft spot for worms, even if they aren't very good. For the next archetype, let's just move on to Fables. I think Fabled is a deck you can potentially play in this format, even if it's like it's not good, but you can play it, I guess. And of these sort of archetypes released here, I think it probably is one of the more put together decks. Like, it has boss monsters it can go into, include some new boss monsters like Ragan. Ragan's pretty good. It's a level 5 synchro. It's one Fable tuner, one non-tuner. One or more non-tuner monster, I guess. And then when synchro summon, you can draw until you have 2 cards in hand, which this deck often does go low because it's pitching a lot of its cards for its combos and stuff. So that's a nice way to get back from that. You've also got Leviathan, which is a level, I believe, 10. Yeah, level 10 light Fiend Synchro, made one Fable Tuner, one or more non-tuner monsters. 3,000 attack, 2,000 defense. Says when this card on the field is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can target up to 3 Fable monsters in your graveyard, add them to your hand. So again, another way to sort of get things back in your hand to make more Fable plays later. So that's kind of cool. I think that in the main deck, you got some good stuff like Ashen Veil, a level 4 Light Fiend, 600 attack, 1200 defense, is 1 per battle. If this card battles during damage calc, you can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard. This card gains 600 attack during that damage calc only. A good new card to send to grave is Cruce. Cruce is a level 2 Light Fiend, 1000 attack, 800 defense. So if this card is scored at the graveyard, target 1 other level 4 or lower Fabled monster in your graveyard, supposed to summon that target. Actually, I just realized this says send, it doesn't say discard. So it won't trigger with Cruise. But there are other Fabled monsters that do say send. Like, for instance, Diff. Diff is a level 3, 1400 attack, 700 defense point Fiend. When a Fabled monster or monster is sent from your hand to the graveyard, except during the damage step, you trigger this card, then target one of those monsters spells to summon it. So that says sent. Unfortunately, it still doesn't work with Ashen Veil because that is during the damage step. But, you know, beggars can't be choosers, I guess. Yeah, so this can bring back things to, you know, like combo with stuff, I guess. Ultros here as well with the level 2 Light Fiend Tuner. So 1 per turn, you send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard. Supposed to summon 1 level 3 Fabled monster from your hand. So that actually does not trigger with Diff because Diff misses timing. Okay, Diff might just be really bad. It also does not actually work with Cruise because Cruise is just discarded. I'm starting to regret my choices of placing this as the third or the fourth archetype I talk about in this area. But I mean, like, they still have the other stuff. Like, you know, they do have Kushano in this format. So, like, Kushano can bounce, you know, it can come back. And that, like, you can bring back Kushano by discarding Cruise, and that will be discarded. So then you can Cruise back something else. You also got Lurie here as well. Like, I don't know. There's some stuff you can do. Obviously Casteth not out yet, or maybe not obviously, but it's not out yet, so can't use that for your plays. But like, I guess there's some neat plays you can do with some of the already established Fable support. But yeah, most of this is like pretty bad. I'd say that Ms. Toji is also pretty bad. Level 2 Fiend Tuner. This is you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target 1 non-tuner Fabled monster. You control that target, or that monster is treated as a tuner while face up on field. So, like, I don't actually know if this will cause Diff to miss timing. I don't know if that's, like, I assume it would. But, yeah, it's kind of a weird, different effect than, like, you know, something like Ultra that causes the field to change. But, yeah. I think this you just use, like, if you've already got an established board and you've done your normal summon for the turn. And, like, you want to do that. But, like, I don't know. These are just kind of getting the worse and worse the more I read them. Ruby Ruda is a level 4 Beast Tuner, 1100 attack, 800 defense. When the face of a card you control selects an attack target, you can discard 1 Fabled monster to negate the attack. This is actually pretty good because if they attack into this, you discard like Cruce, or you discard like Lurie, or you discard something. You get a monster on field, then do a synchro play later. So that's kind of neat, although it does happen on your opponent's turn, so it's not ideal, but it's something at least. Rustos is a level 4 Light Fiend, 1500 attack, 200 defense. Says while you have 2 or less cards in your hand, all face of Fable monster you control gain 400 attack. It's a bit of a boost. Is the best? No, but like it's something, I guess, if the deck wants to attack boost. Fabled Topi, level 1 Light Fiend, 500 attack, 200 defense. Says if your opponent has 2 or more cards in their hand than you do, which they probably will, so you're pitching your Fabled. You reveal 1 Fabled monster in your hand, tribute this face-up card, then target 2 spell traps your opponent controls. Destroy those targets. It's fine. I mean, I don't know. Like, I could see a world in which you have this engraved and you're able to like recycle it with like Kushano, like. You bring back Kushano by pitching Cruise, which then brings back the Topi, which then Topi reveals the Kushano, and then like you pop things, and then yeah, I don't know. There's something here maybe, but like it's not the best. It's better now that like Heavy's gone, but like, is it worth it? Probably not. They also have a main deck boss monster now in the form of Fabled Sulcius, which is a level 6 Fiend, 22 deck, 21 defense. That if this card is in your graveyard, you can send 2 cards from your hand to the graveyard except for Fabled Sulcius and special summon this card. You can't bring it out off Cruise, so this is something that it needs to do for itself, I guess. But I don't know if that's necessarily worth it. Like, I don't know. It lowers your hand size, I guess. It can be brought back pretty easily, so maybe it is, but it's just this deck is definitely struggling. It needs something. It will get that something later. I mean, Capsith will definitely help, and also, things like Cerberell and Unicorn as well will definitely help later. But yeah, it's unfortunately not out yet, so it'll be out soonish, but as of now, it's not going to be doing much. Anyways, moving on, we've got Jirak. Jirak probably should have gone above this because Guaiba actually is a relevant card. Maybe not in this form, but for later. Level 4 Fire Dinosaur, 1700 attack, 400 defense. So that this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle. You can special summon a 1 Jirak monster with 1700 or less attack from your deck, but you cannot declare an attack this turn. So if you're familiar with formats where Dino Rabbit's legal, it is a key piece of that. Here, not as good because you can't go to like Exceed stuff. But you can bring out like a tuner to like do synchro plays. Like Brackus here is a tuner, for instance, and there are other Jirak tuners that have been released already. Unfortunately, like Jirak doesn't have many actually good synchros to go into. It has Giganoto that was already released. That was a level 7. So I guess, Guaiba plus Brackus is that. Makes Giganoto, and then Giganoto is just a big guy. But it's not really ideal. You also now have Velfido, which is a level 5 synchro, made with 1 tuner, 1 or more non-tuner dinosaur monsters. Question mark attack, question mark defense, and it says this card's attack and defense becomes equal to the total original attack of the monster used for its synchro summon. At the start of damage step, if this card attacks face on a monster, you could destroy that monster before it flips up. So it's basically Drillroid and a Jirak monster with probably a decent amount of attack. Although there isn't like a super good way to make this right now, because if you're looking for tuners, it's just mainly Brackus and Monoloth. So you need a level 3 and a level 2, which is like not good. Like I can't even think of like, I guess you'd want to do like Monoloth, and then what's a level, like Starrico is like 500, and that's the level 2. So yeah, it's just like real bad. I mean, you can do like level modulation, but not good. Yeah, Iolo and like Iolo's not out yet, so you can't like do anything with that. So we are just stuck with kind of bad Jirak combos here. But if you're talking about destroying things by battle, Iguanon also does something. Level 4 Dinosaur, 700 attack, 700 defense. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can select 1 set card your opponent controls and return to hand. So not ideal because, just bounce to hand. It doesn't really prevent your opponent from using it later. But it's something, I guess. Like, I don't know. It's something. Now, if we're talking about continuing that trend, Spinos is definitely the best of these monsters destroying things by battle. 2600 attack, 700 defense, level 7 monster. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sent to the graveyard, special summon 1 Spinos token and attack into your opponent's side of the field. So basically, the Spinos token is very weak. It has 300 attack, 0 defense. So basically, you get in first with the Spinos to give your opponent a token, and then you can attack in with like the Iguanon or the Guaiba, get over that, and then get another effect off. So like mainly like Spinos and then into Guaiba, right? Guaiba attack in and then get out like potentially a Brackus, and then Brackus can do a synchro play. So I think that's mainly what you're doing. But yeah, it's kind of awkward. It's level 7 monster. I mean, you can get into it with like Starrico is probably the way you do it. Level 2 dinosaur, fire attack, 4 defense. So if this card is destroyed by battle, it's supposed to summon 2 Jirak tokens, which just have 0 attack, 0 defense. In defense position, they cannot be tributed for a tribute summon except for a Jirak monster. So they're basically like Dandelion, but probably worse for most decks. But yeah, so you can tribute those, go into the Spinos, or even a Titano if you want to, although Titano is really bad. Titano is a level 9, I think. Dinosaur, 3000 attack, 20 defense, cannot be special summoned, cannot be targeted by trap or monster effects. Once per turn, you can banish 1 Jirak monster with 17 or less attack from your graveyard, and this card gains 1000 attack until the end phase. So it basically is a big beat stick that can't be targeted by certain effects. Not terrible, but it's like really not worth the payoff for it. Also, it can't be special summoned, which makes it very awkward to bring out. So it's kind of rough. I think if you're going for tributes, you want to go for Spinos or maybe even Tyrannus, which was already released, which is like not that good. Again, it's like basically another beat stick. But it's maybe a better beat stick than Titano because it means special. I really don't know. This deck is not really playable in any meaningful capacity. Brachus, I've mentioned multiple times. It's a tuner. That's the main point of it. Level 3, 1,000 attack, 1,000 defense. But it does say while another Jerax monster on the field, it can't be destroyed by battle. So there is that, at least, which can then set up for synchro plays or tribute plays later if you want. Terra is a level 3 dinosaur, 800 attack, 1,500 defense. This card is maybe the worst card in the archetype, and that is saying a lot because this archetype is really bad so far. It says if this card is attacked, return the attacked monster to the hand after defense calculation, and this card gains defense equal to the return monster level times 100. So the issue with this is that it has to survive, because, I mean, I guess it doesn't have to survive the bounce monster back, because that's a damage calc, which I think it would still allow to bounce it, but like it's not gaining defense. So it's basically a worse Hyper Hammerhead. Yeah, this thing is just really bad. Like, worst card in the archetype, and that is saying a lot. Gen X actually got some decent stuff here, and I'm saying decent for Gen X, because, yeah, Gen X has generally been pretty bad, but it does have some more consistency tools that actually do enable it to become a thing later on. Whether that thing is, like, top tier, I would say probably not, but, like, it is a thing you can do, and these cards are the backbone of it. So, neat resource loop. Argenix Magma, level 3 Pyro, 1,000 attack, 200 defense. Says when this card normal summon, you can add one level 2 Argenix monster from your deck to your hand. The one you're adding is probably Crusher. Crusher is a machine, 800 attack, 800 defense. So when this card normal summon, you can add one level 4 Gen X monster from your deck to your hand. The one you're probably adding is Gen X Turbo. Although it is important to note that for both of those options, there is another option as well in the form of Accelerator or Overseer, which we'll get to in a second. But Gen X Turbo is a level 4 wind machine, 1500 attack, 1300 defense. It says when this card normal summon, you can add one level 1 Gen X monster from your deck to hand. The one you're probably adding is Gen X Oracle. Is a level 1 Dark Spellcaster Tuner. 3 attack, 300 defense. Says if this card added from your deck to your hand by the effect of a Gen X monster, you can spell summon this card. This card cannot be used as synchro material except for the synchro summon of a Gen X monster. So the idea is that if you have like Ultimate Offering up, you summon out Magma, search out Crusher, summon out Crusher, search out Turbo, summon out Turbo, search out Oracle, special summon Oracle, and then you can go for a synchro play. Unfortunately, it's a bit awkward because, you know, that's 10 levels total, which would normally be great for getting out something like Locomotion Argent X with a level 10 synchro, which is actually very good. But the Gen X synchros, lest you forget, are made with one Gen X tuner and one or more non-tuner dark monsters in this case, or non-tuner whatever element you're looking at, right? So you actually can't make Locomotion Argent X with that, you know, level 10 worth of material. I don't think you can make most of the synchro monsters you want. Vindicate you definitely can't make because, you know, Turbo's a fiend, or not a fiend, a wind. But 1 plus 4 does not make 7. Or no, that's 8 even. Vindicate isn't even that good. It's made with 1 Gen X tuner, 1 or more non-tuner wind monster, 24 attack, 1,000 defense. Your opponent cannot select this card as an attack target. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can add 1 Gen X monster from your deck to your hand. Yeah, that's fine. I guess you can like search out like, you know, you could honestly search out the Oracle and then bring out the Oracle there. But yeah, this thing is not as good as Locomotion Argent X, which actually, you know, takes control of your opponent's monster with the highest level when synchro summoned. That seems pretty good. A bit better than Vindicate Argent X. Now, that being said, you can still make Gen X Ally Axel, level 8 Dark Machine, made with 1 Gen X tuner or 1 or more non-tuner monsters. So, you know, with this, you can actually bring this thing out. There's no attribute restriction on it. It's 2,600 attack, 2,000 defense. Said 1 per turn, you can discard 1 card, then target 1 level 4 lower machine monster in your graveyard. Control summon that target, and if you do it, attack becomes doubled until the end of the turn. You cannot attack your opponent directly. Also banish it during your end phase. So this is a way to make that happen, and it's fine. Like, you can get a guy and then a beat stick after that. But, like, is it worth going through the setup? Probably not, especially since if you have Ultimate Offering up, you can just search out Controller, summon out Controller, and probably make some better things. I mean, if we look at, like, past Gen X synchros, not Gen SX, Gen X synchros, I mean, these need Controller, but you can't make that anyways with it. Gen X, you cannot make the 6, and Crusher's a 2. Yeah, Thermal you can't make. Windmill you can make with Controller. So if you want to make Windmill, which is arguably one of the worst Gen X monsters, you can do that. But yeah, you're not able to make anything like super good here. Now, if you want to mix up the combo lines even further and not search out the Turbo or the Crusher, you've got Accelerator here, which is level 4 wind. Machine, 1500 attack, 1900 defense. Says when a genetic monster is added from your deck to your hand, you reveal that monster to special summon it. Now, that seems good on paper because you're like, oh, I get to do this whole loop without having to have Ultimate Offering. It's actually pretty bad on paper or in practice because, like, these monsters only trigger on normal summon. So you can't, like, have Argenex Accelerator out and then Magma, search out Crusher, search out Turbo. It won't work like that. Now, that being said, this can make, if you search out Controller while it's on field, you can make a windmill, just like Turbo can. So that's something. But, like, is it worth it? Maybe not. If you have Neutron out, to start something, I guess you can do something there as well. But then, then you're vulnerable to your opponent's Dark Hole or something like that. So it's kind of rough. Overseer is the level 2 option that you can search out instead. This is also a Gen X tuner if you want to go that way. It says when it's normal or special summon, you can special summon one level 3 to lower Gen X monster from your hand. So, again, another way to get more monsters on field, but what are you using them for? Yeah, it's just like the synchro math does not add up for most of these things. So, unfortunately, it does not really work out super well. Ultimatum is pretty cool. It's a level 4 Earth Machine, 1800 attack, 1400 defense. And when this face-up card in the field is destroyed, instead of the graveyard, you select 2 Gen X monsters from your graveyard and return them to the deck. So basically, this allows you to recycle your things and get more searches later. So that's kind of neat. But does it tie the deck together? Yeah, I'd say probably not. And then we do have one non-Argenex monster here. Gen X Ally Duradark, it's a level 4 Dark Machine, 1800 attack, 200 defense. Says once per turn, you can target one attack position monster your opponent controls with the same attribute of this card. Destroy that target. This card cannot attack the turn this effect is activated. Now, this thing is dark, which means that it is the best sort of attribute to have for an effect like this. But I don't necessarily know if there's a way to change its attribute easily. So I don't think there is right now, which make the card like not the best, but it's still something. Just popping dark monsters is fine, I guess. So if you want to play it, you can. That brings us to the last set of monsters and archetype we have to discuss, which is Ice Barrier. Ice Barrier is probably the most useless of the hidden arsenal archetypes because it is barely even an archetype. It does not synergize at all. It just basically does the thing that I mentioned with Nishuria, where they're trying a bunch of different things all at once, and so it doesn't coalesce into anything actually strong. Same thing's true with Ice Barrier. So if you want to play some subset of Ice Barrier, maybe you can make something work, but I can't really see the vision right now, especially in a Gravekeeper format. So Medallion of the Ice Barrier, though, is very good. Whatever type of Ice Barrier deck you want to play, it is a recruiter for the deck. So you add one Ice Barrier monster from your deck to your hand. No level restriction on that. So you can add in like some of your big guys if you want. So that's probably the best card the deck has ever received outside of the Synchro monsters. Moving on, we get Caravan of the Ice Barrier, a level 1 Water Sea Serpent, 500 attack, 200 defense. So once per turn, you can target 2 Ice Barrier monsters in your graveyard, shuffle both into the deck. Then each player draws 1 card. So the fact that your opponent gets to draw a card as well, and your deck is now thickened up with more Ice Barrier monsters is not really that good. But I guess it's an interesting way to recycle some things. I don't know. You've got Dance Princess of the Ice Barrier as well, level 4 water. Once per turn, if you control another Ice Barrier monster, you can reveal any number of Ice Barrier monsters in your hand, then target an equal number of set spell traps your opponent controls, return those targets to the hand. So again, just like with anything else that's returned these set cards to the hand, it's not really that good because they can just use them later. It's not like a Synchro monster that you're bouncing back to hand. It's just spell traps that they can just reset and be fine with, right? So it's kind of rough. You don't lose anything for doing this at least, so it's not like you go negative on card advantage, but it's still annoying. Dark of the Ice Barrier, level 2 water Aqua Tuner, 1200 attack, 800 defense. If the only face-up monster you control are level 2 or lower, this card can attack your opponent directly. In a wetland style deck, this could maybe work. But wetland style decks are pretty bad, I think. So I would say it probably doesn't work. But yeah, just having a 2400 attack point monster beating in every turn is pretty good. If you don't know what wetlands is, because I realize that, it's a bit obscure. Field spell that basically buffs the attack of all Aqua level 2 water monsters by 1200. So there's a 2400 beater attacking in every turn directly. That seems like a good clock. It also outs Necrally. Also, if you're playing this style deck, you probably don't care about graveyard stuff, except for maybe if you're playing like Ronin Totem and stuff. But yeah, so maybe this is something. I wouldn't hold my breath though. Samurai of the Ice Barrier is a level 4 warrior, 1800 attack, 1500 defense. If this face-up attack position card is changed to face-up defense position, destroy this card. And if you do, draw 1 card. So if you have it on field for a turn, it survives, and then you're like, you know what, I want to replace it. Switch to defense, draw a card. that is something that feels like not very good in Yu-Gi-Oh! It would feel more at place in like Magic the Gathering or a slower game like that. Whereas here it's just kind of like pretty bad. So yeah, I don't like that card, but I don't like most of the ice barriers, so it's not personal. Sharks from the ice barrier, level 3 water spellcaster, 1500 attack, 800 defense. You can tribute this card, then target one water monster on the field, destroy it, and if you do, add one ice barrier monster from your deck to your hand. So unless you're in the ice barrier mirror, this thing is not going to be very good, as you'll have to tribute it, pop one of your own waters, and then add an ice barrier monster. So you've like gone -2 to search one card, or I guess -1. Yeah, it just seems pretty bad. I mean, I guess you could argue that like people are playing Bryanak in their decks, so like you bring this out, pop the Bryanak, and then there you go. But like you still wasted a normal on this, and like it's just not good tempo wise. This thing is pretty bad. We got Spellbreaker the Ice Barrier next. Level 4 spellcaster, 1200 attack, 2000 defense, does 1 per turn. You send 1 ice barrier monster from your hand to the graveyard. Neither player can activate spell cards until the end of your next turn while this monster is face up on the field. That is kind of neat. It's kind of like a Secret Village with the spellcasters, if just on a monster itself. But like it's very easy to get over. It's 1200 attack, so like you'd have to have this thing in defense mode. So you probably have to set it. They'd attack in for a turn, see it, and then if they've got any spell cards that they need to use imminently, they'd probably use them. I don't know. This thing, it just seems pretty bad overall. Maybe someone can make it work, but like I think it's just overall pretty bad. Next up, we got a new boss, General Grunard of the Ice Barrier, level 8 Water Warrior. In the main deck, 2800 attack, 1000 defense. During your main phase, you can normal summon 1 Ice Barrier monster in addition to your normal summoner set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. So I guess this makes things like Shock Troops a bit less bad because you don't go like completely negative on it, maybe. But like I don't know. This just seems pretty bad overall. So 2800 attack is fine. If you're able to get more monsters on field, I guess that's also fine, but it's just pretty rough. Of course, they did get another Synchro boss monster, so, you know, given the power of, like, Bryanak and Duloran, you'd expect this thing to be very good. Unfortunately, it is not very good. Level 7 water, made with 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner water monsters, which cuts it out of contention for most decks in the format. Once per turn, you can discard up to 2 cards to the graveyard, then target the same number of cards your opponent controls, destroy them. So this is basically Bryanak, but it runs into Stardust Dragon, it runs into Starlight Road. It's just, you know, worse Bryanak, right? So I don't really think it's worth running in an Ice Barrier deck. Maybe if you're playing pure Icebreaker or Ice Barrier or something, maybe you run it there. But overall, it's just pretty bad. Last card to cover in this video, thank goodness, because these have been not very good cards, is Mirror of the Ice Barrier. And I do find this card very interesting. It's a quickly spell that mainly is just looking forward to the future. And I really do like this on a lore level. And you might be able to see the lore it's referring to in the image itself with the 3 heads surrounding the mirror. But if you can't see that, then maybe you'll see it from the effect, which says during this turn, each time a card or cards is banished from your hand, field, or graveyard by your opponent's activated monster effect, apply the following effects based on where the cards were banished from. From hand, banish up to 2 random cards from your opponent's hand. From field, banish up to 2 cards from your opponent controls. And from graveyard, banish up to 2 cards from your opponent's graveyard. So, if you don't know what's coming, there is a monster that can do all of these at once. And so there's a nice bit of counterplay to that. So they bring out that monster, you activate this card, and then they're losing a lot of cards from hand and field and graveyard. So I like that as counterplay. I don't think it's very good against that monster, but I do like that they're looking ahead to future releases. And I'm curious when this came out, if anyone thought like, oh, interesting, I wonder what this card is referring to or like going to be used for. Is there going to be a monster that can do this? And because lo and behold, there was. Anyways, that's going to do it for the new cards in this set. A lot of just pack filler mainly, or just cards that like are contributing to just very bad archetypes. So I hope that, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh will be able to, you know, sort of get out of that rut and design better packs in the future. I think there were some packs earlier in 5Ds that did a little bit better, but frankly, I feel like 5Ds has sort of continued the trend of the GX era and printing packs that have not been super powerful. And just instead of replacing cards in it with just like bad pack filler that doesn't synergize with anything, they just replace that pack filler with like bad archetypes that don't synergize with anything. So I hope that they change that in the future. I know that they will, because I you know, we have history to look back on, but I hope they do it very soon. And so we'll see if they manage to do that very soon, like I'm hoping. Anyways, let's show off some example deck lists for this format before closing out the video, just so that way, if you want to pick up a deck and start playing the format for yourself, you have some options. Now, as I mentioned, Gravekeepers is the best deck in the format. It's the deck to beat. Again, it's not tier 0 because people can beat it, or at least doesn't seem to be tier 0. Maybe with future testing it will be. But it is the best deck in the format, by a fair bit. And again, that's because these recruiters are in the deck. And so I'm showing off Artos's list from the last Starstrike tournament. Mainly because Artos recently won a locals with Gravekeepers, and also because I do like the 3 Stel in the deck. I know that there's been some debate over 3 Stel versus 2 Stel. For my unexperienced, at piloting the deck eyes, I think that 3 Stel makes more sense if you're going up, especially in the mirror, because it gives you a lot more grind game against different decks. So yes, it can be a brick if you're not set up, but a lot of decks in the format are going slow enough that like you can have time set up. So like I do like 3, so I want to show off a list that has 3. But if you want to do 2, there are other lists out there that have 2, and you can just check the format library coverage for the last YGO from Zero Discord server tournament for this format. Which, if you want to play games in Starstrike format or any of the format that I featured on the channel, head over there, linked in the description down below. But so I like this list a bit. So yeah, I mean, and the nice thing about Gravekeepers too is that it's very adjustable. Like, I would say outside of Triple Commandant, Triple Descendant, Triple Recruiter, Triple Spy, Triple Necro Valley, Triple Royal Tribute, Triple Pot of Duality, like, you do have more flexibility in, like, the back row, which I think is quite nice. Like, Assailant, I would say, even is optional, As we've talked about, you can go 3 Stel or 2 Stel. I prefer 3, but that's sort of a flexible spot as well. But the exact back row that you choose to run can vary. And the side deck can vary as well, depending on what you're afraid of. So, yeah, this deck is very good. I will be showing a video on it pretty soon. It's pretty straightforward, though. It's just a resource game that you're grinding through. And no fancy combos here, really. Just basic outgrind your opponent and win through that. Or just sack them with Royal Tribute and rip apart their entire hand. Either one works. I do want to point out, though, that, like, even though Gravekeeper is the deck to beat, it doesn't always win. In the last Starstrike format tournament, Wagmuffin actually managed to win with Plant Synchro using the list shown here. Plant Synchro it has access to Glow Bulb and can make some pretty big plays with Bulb and Spore, Dandies, Lone Fires. If you wanted to, you could even go more Glow Bulbs, although I think they only get to use the effect once per duel among the 3 copies that you'd have. So I don't really think that would be that good, but you could make more if you wanted to increase the consistency of seeing it. But yeah, this is a pretty good deck list if you want to play this deck. This one does take a little bit more finagling than some of the Gravekeepers, especially if you are up against Gravekeepers. You do need to know how to get rid of their Necro Valleys and things like that. But if you can make it work, it's very, very good. And Wagmuffin made it work. So very, very cool stuff. Playing the 2 formula here as well to get those draws in and do very, very cool plays. So kudos to Wagmuffin for making this list and winning with it. And I will definitely be trying this out in the future. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed as always. If you did enjoy this sort of thing, like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. Also, if you want to see games in this format, I will be having games on the channel quite shortly. You can also go back and rewatch some of the locals VODs that I've had. I've done Starstrike locals in the past, including one this past weekend. So you can check that out if you're interested in it. If you want to play games in this format or any other format featured on the channel, head over to the YGO from Zero Discord server, as I mentioned before. And that's going to do it. My voice is shot, so I hope that you all enjoyed this very long video. And I'm looking forward to doing the next one. Until next time, I've been Med for YGO from Zero. I'm signing out. Peace.